Phoenix Nights. Chapter 320. Is he called Chao Qing? Dongwu Shuang quickly regained his senses and asked anxiously. I don't know about that. The green-haired Shi Wei was shocked. Why? Don't you know that he became a deity? If I'm not wrong, you and him are both from the Xia people. Yes. Dongwu Shuang nodded. Following which, Dongwu Shuang waved his hand and heaven and earth energy gathered in front of him, forming an image of Chao Qing. Is it him? Dongwu Shuang asked again. Amen. The green-haired Shi Wei nodded. Dongwu Shuang's heart was filled with boundless joy. Chao Qing opened his deity sea and became a deity. That's great, that's really great. Dongwu Shuang was incomparably excited. Even if he successfully cured himself of the poison, he wouldn't be this happy. Senior Chao Qing has become a deity. We, the Xia people, now have a deity. Even if the sorcerer god and the great demon god start a war, we, the Xia people, will finally have the power to resist. Chao Qing didn't die. This was worth celebrating. But becoming a deity was even more worth celebrating. A deity, and one with a grade 4 deity heart. In terms of strength, he might not even be comparable to Dongwu Shuang, Persei, or the lords of Ulan. At most, he would only be close to them. But deities had their own special significance. For example, they could control the Dingjiu battleship. With Senior Chao Qing here, there would be an endless supply of god energy to activate the Dingjiu battleship. Even if the arrays on the battleship were too complicated to fully comprehend, with god energy, the power of the battleship would naturally be different. Dongwu Shuang was excited. Senior Shi Wei? Dongwu Shuang asked again. Did he leave? Or is he still in Crimson Rock Mountain? He left long ago. The green-haired woman, Shi Wei said. Originally, he could have trained in the cultivation paradise for 1,000 years. However, as soon as he became a deity, he left the cultivation paradise without staying for long. Furthermore, with his current strength, he would not be able to participate in the deity-level trial. Naturally, after leaving Crimson Rock Mountain, he should have returned to the Xia people. Red Rock Mountain. In fact, other than the demigod-level test, there was also the god-level test. Of course, it had to be a real god. Something like the god avatar that was suppressed to the demigod limit power couldn't be considered a true god, nor could it be considered a demigod. He left Crimson Rock Mountain and returned to the Xia people? Dongwu Shuang was puzzled. When did he become a god? Why are you asking so many questions? Do you have a grudge against him? The green-haired woman, Shi Wei, frowned. She also felt that something was off. Chao Qing had clearly become a god. Could it be that this Xia people brat didn't know? She didn't elaborate further. Dongwu Shuang pondered. Senior Chao Qing's lifespan was limited to 3,000 years. He must have ascended to godhood before his lifespan came to an end. In other words, he should have returned to the Xia people tens of years ago. But I've never heard of him returning. When we faced the Lords of Ulan's provocations, Senior Chao Qing didn't appear either. Dongwu Shuang pondered. But he clearly went out again. Senior Chao Qing has a god's domain. It's impossible for him to die quietly in the Xia people's world. If he released a bit of his godly power, he would have shaken the entire Xia people's world. Then this can only mean one thing. He's deliberately hiding. Dongwu Shuang's eyes lit up, revealing a look of joy. Yes. He was hiding. Amongst the Xia people's demigods, there are probably traitors of the demonic faction. In order to hide, Senior Chao Qing didn't tell any transcendents, not even Palace Lord Qin. Dongwu Shuang nodded his head. Although Palace Lord Qin is absolutely loyal, his every word and action might be spied on by the traitors in the dark. Only by not telling anyone can it be kept a secret. If it's made public, the sorcerer god and the great demon god will know immediately. They will understand that attacking the Xia people will be very difficult. I'm afraid they would rather wait for 7,000 years and wait for Senior Chao Qing to enter the deity world before attacking. Dongwu Shuang understood this point. Even if they don't delay and attack forcefully. I'm afraid that after knowing of Senior Chao Qing's existence, they will be prepared. When it came to the Xia people, the sorcerer god and the great demon god paid the most attention to Dongwu Shuiying. Chao Qing, on the other hand, was hiding in the dark. Only a hidden killing move would be powerful enough. Hiding in the dark, the initiative is in our hands. Dongwu Shuiying was secretly delighted. Senior Chao Qing really can endure. That time when the lords of Ulan and the rest provoked them, Senior Chao Qing actually endured and did not make a move. Compared to the sorcerer god and the great demon god, the lords of Ulan and the rest are just a small problem. Senior Shiwei. Dongwu Shuiying's smile was brilliant. I choose to observe the creation of heaven and earth. At this time, Dongwu Shuiying was incomparably relaxed. Previously, he had been under a lot of pressure, worrying about the survival of the entire Xia people. Now that the pressure had lessened, his mood was incomparably good. All right. The green-haired Shiwei nodded and waved her hand. A spatial ripple enveloped him, and Dongwu Shuiying was instantly teleported away. The world of the Xia people. Beside the pure white beach, a wooden boat was drifting. On the wooden boat, an old man dressed in tattered clothes was currently fishing. He seemed to be fishing calmly, but in reality, his god's domain was carefully sensing the world around him. The entire mortal world. He could sense any battle that was slightly larger in scale. In terms of sensing ability, as a deity who grasped the god's domain, he was currently the strongest in the mortal world. Of course, the moment a deity's avatar descended, it would be a different story. A deity's avatar was a mighty existence of the world deity level. Although its power was suppressed to the limit of a demigod by the entire mortal world, it could only be ranked in the top 3 of the demigod rankings. It couldn't even compare to era suppressors like General Ku Meng or Nuo Nguyen. However, the laws of profound mysteries were too profound. Although its power was weak, it could still kill a newly ascended deity. Deities at the level of the Lords of Ulan and Dongwu Shuiying were similarly killed in front of a deity's avatar. The main reason was that the disparity in the laws of profound mysteries was too great. Fortunately, that brat Snow Eagle was powerful enough to block that demigod from the dark abyss called the Lords of Ulan at the crucial moment. The old man continued fishing. Otherwise, if the Lords of Ulan really wanted to slaughter the entire Xia people, I'm afraid I would have to expose myself. Back then, when the Lords of Ulan destroyed the array of Black-White Deity Mountain and killed Feng Dong, the commotion wasn't too exaggerated. However, Chao Qing also sensed it and quickly headed over. He arrived slightly earlier than Dongwu Shuiying. Watching from afar, he couldn't help but want to show himself. After all, he couldn't just watch as the countless humans of the Xia people's world were slaughtered. Fortunately, Dongwu Shuiying had resolved everything, which made him feel quite gratified. The little guy he had watched grow up was now no weaker than him, who had become a deity. All the teams have gone to Crimson Rock Mountain, including Snow Eagle. I hope that Snow Eagle can cure himself of the voodoo poison and soar to the skies. Although becoming a deity will pose a threat to the sorcerer god and the great demon god, it won't be fatal. If Snow Eagle can become a deity, they'll definitely lose. Chao Qing silently looked forward to Dongwu Shuiying soaring to the skies in Crimson Rock Mountain. Within Crimson Rock Mountain, in a secret area. Outside the canyon. Dongwu Shuiying, Uncle Fu, Persei, Meishan Master, and the others were all waiting outside the canyon. Dongwu Shuiying, you're here as well? Persei said in surprise. You've also chosen to create heaven and earth? Why are all of you standing here? Dongwu Shuiying asked curiously. We can't go in, Uncle Fu said. We have to take turns to watch the creation of heaven and earth. Wu Mahai is currently inside. Once he's done, we'll go in one by one. Dongwu Shuiying nodded in understanding. Chapter 321. Persei reacted immediately and asked in a low voice. Dongwu Shuiying, did you get poisoned by the hex poison? Passing the most basic test of the floating island, the meteor bridge, would result in a gift, but only a gift. Dongwu Shuiying had actually chosen the creation of heaven and earth. What about the antidote? I can't. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Senior Shiwei said that the Six Ghosts' resentment is a peak-stage deity poison. The antidote is too valuable, far surpassing the value of a gift. But this isn't a primitive hex poison, Percy asked. Even if it's a weakened version, the antidote's value far surpasses the value of a gift. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. By the side, the Maishan master, the golden-robed youth Ken Huang, the white-robed girl, and the others all looked at Dongbu Shuang. Although they felt some sympathy, they didn't say anything. Hex poison, AI, it's truly terrifying. Percy sighed. His beloved had died from the hex poison, and even his flying sword manner had no way of saving her. Moreover, the Six Ghosts' resentment is a peak-stage deity poison. If it was a primitive hex poison, even a peak-stage deity expert would be tormented by it. To seek help, one would have to pay a price far surpassing the value of a top-grade deity weapon. Deity weapons were divided into deity, world deity, and even higher. Weapons like the Sorcerer God's Saber and Senior Snow were considered top-grade deity weapons. Demigods were incapable of activating ordinary top-grade deity weapons. They could only activate low-grade deity weapons. As for the Sorcerer God's Saber and Senior Snow, they both had one thing in common: they were blood-refined deity weapons. The ones that grew alongside their master were all from low-grade deity weapons to top-grade deity weapons. Due to the limitations of the weapon's material, the deity rank was their limit. Because they were blood-refined deity weapons, they could be controlled by demigods. However, the requirement for the soul was extremely high. One needed to be very close to the original owner's soul in order to activate it. Thus, deities that specialize in hex poisons are extremely terrifying in the deity world, Percy said. However, I didn't expect that the Sorcerer God's sword's weaker voodoo poison could not be cured even in Crimson Rock Mountain. After all, it's a peak-level divine-level witch poison. The Maishan master spoke up from the side. Haven't you all noticed that the gifts given by Crimson Rock Mountain are actually quite cheap? They aren't even willing to give a single divine artifact. They were all demigod-grade treasures. The extremely valuable watching the creation of heaven and earth and the cultivation grotto heaven won't cause them any loss. Everyone present nodded. Yes, the real treasures given weren't very valuable. The creation of heaven and earth? I'm just taking a look. Cultivation paradise? Cultivating there wouldn't affect the grotto heaven at all. Yes, it's the creation of heaven and earth and the cultivation paradise that attract people. Percy shook his head and smiled. He had to make sure that the demigods were attractive enough. Otherwise, there would be very few who would risk their lives. Back in the deity realm, Crimson Rock Mountain attracted countless demigods. Even deities went. Of course, the deities who went were all peak-stage deities. Uncle Fu added from the side. The demigods who came were all peak-stage demigods. Naturally, the deities who took the trials were all peak-stage deities. You can't blame Crimson Rock Mountain for being stingy, Dongbu Shuang said. Countless demigods and even deities went to challenge it. If they paid too many gifts, Crimson Rock Mountain wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. Naturally, they had to control the value of the gifts. Only the creation of heaven and earth and the cultivation paradise that don't require much of a price can they be more generous. Everyone present nodded. One demigod would be given a divine artifact. The deity realm was so vast. Over the course of 100 million years, how many demigods had passed the basic trials? How many divine artifacts did they have to give? That was a terrifying number. The value of the gifts had to be strictly controlled. Dongbu Shuang, I didn't expect that even without an antidote, he would be so open-minded, said the golden-robed youth, Ken Huang. Admirable, admirable. Dongbu Shuang smiled but didn't explain. Previously, he had been somewhat anxious and unresigned. However, the matter of Senior Chao Qing becoming a deity had greatly improved his mood and made him feel much more relaxed. Thus, he was able to accept it. One should always look forward and not always rely on luck. Wu Ma Hai was watching the creation of heaven and earth from within the gorge. An hour later, it was the white-robed girl's turn to enter. Everyone took turns to enter, they were in no rush. Each person was given an hour. Dongbu Shuang was the last to arrive, and so he was at the end of the line. Hua! The gorge, which had been enveloped by an invisible force, suddenly split apart. At this moment, Dongbu Shuang was the only one left outside the gorge. He strode into the gorge. The gorge was silent. It didn't take long. Dongbu Shuang saw a black-robed elder standing in the distance. Young Transcendent. The black-robed elder looked at Dongbu Shuang as he said coldly, "It hasn't been too long since you watched the creation of heaven and earth. Usually, after watching the creation of heaven and earth, you would fall into a state of enlightenment. However, an hour later, I will still teleport you back to Shiwei's side. You must understand this." "Yes, senior." Dongbu Shuang bowed respectfully. "This is the creation of heaven and earth imprint." The black-robed elder pointed to a cliff by the side of the gorge. Dongbu Shuang turned his head to take a look. There was an invisible force blocking the cliff. But soon after, the invisible force dissipated, revealing a huge crater on the cliff. This crater even had fingerprints. With a single glance, Dongbu Shuang was able to determine that this should be the work of a gigantic finger on the cliff. "There's no need to think too much. Just use your mental energy to sense it," the black-robed elder said. "Yes." Dongbu Shuang sat down cross-legged. After which, his soul energy permeated the area, seeping into the crater. The instant his soul energy touched the crater, Hong! Dongbu Shuang saw it. It was a vast and silent void of darkness. Within the void stood a red-haired, red-robed elder. This elder's entire body was like a ball of incomparably dazzling flames. His hair, eyebrows, beard, and even his eyes were fiery red. Just by standing there, the formless pressure he exuded caused the void of darkness to tremble. Even though Dongbu Shuang was able to see through the imprint, he still felt fear and respect from the bottom of his heart. This red-haired, red-robed elder stretched out his right index finger and pointed towards the void of darkness. His index finger seemed to expand rapidly, filling up one's vision. At the same time, it seemed to be extremely small, penetrating into the deepest part of the void of darkness. Extremity! Dongbu Shuang instantly understood. From this finger, he could sense the extremity. The tip of that finger was like an extremity. It represented the end of all things, and also the extreme point of the beginning of all things. Hong! With a single point of his finger, the void split apart. Boundless primordial energy of heaven and earth surged, and a world began to gradually expand and take shape. Time and space began to appear in this world. There was also a trace of mysterious undulation that permeated the entire world. Of course, there was also the most dazzling fiery light that enveloped the entire world. The world began to take shape. This was a huge blazing world. Plants began to grow, and strange insects and beasts began to be born. Although it was a completely different world from the world of the Xia people, there were still many things in that world. Hua! Everything ended. Once again, a formless energy appeared on the cliff, blocking Dongbu Shuang's view of the world. Dongbu Shuang sat cross-legged within the canyon. He was completely engrossed in the many fundamental laws of profound mysteries of this world, especially the extreme piercing that he was quite familiar with. That red-haired, red-robed elder had used a single finger to split the heavens and earth. For a moment, countless thoughts appeared in Dongbu Shuang's mind. He couldn't help but wave his finger in front of him. Sometimes, his finger would pierce out like a spear, and sometimes, he would slap out with his palm. The black-robed elder by the side watched on expressionlessly. He had long gotten used to this. In the deity world, it was unknown how many transcendents and even deities would be engrossed in watching this. In any case, no matter how engrossed they were, once an hour was up, even if he would disturb them, he would still forcefully teleport them away. Chapter 322. Within the canyon. Dongbu Shuang sat cross-legged in front of the cliff. Beside him, the black-robed old man stood there like a withered tree. As time passed, Dongbu Shuang could not help but frown. Damn it! The pain gradually intensified. Before entering the canyon to observe the creation of heaven and earth, Dongbu Shuang had immediately consumed the antidote. However, at this point, Dongbu Shuang had to consume the antidote every 2 hours even when he was outside. And in Crimson Rock Mountain, in order not to affect his battle, he had to consume the antidote every hour. However, comprehension and battle were two different things. Comprehension required one to be completely immersed in it. As the pain intensified, it still affected Dongbu Shuang. However, Dongbu Shuang was not willing to stop. The creation of heaven and earth was simply too shocking. He had countless ideas in his head, and he wanted to test them out before the light dissipated. This is too mystical. The laws of heaven and earth are actually so vast. What I've comprehended in the past is merely a drop in the ocean. Dongbu Shuang was filled with excitement. In the past, he had never had a master, and he had comprehended everything by himself. However, during the creation of heaven and earth, when a brand new world was formed, all sorts of laws and profound mysteries were manifested. Only then did Dongbu Shuang truly experience the countless laws. Extreme piercing can actually be executed in such a manner. However, compared to the true extreme piercing, it is still far from it. My true intent of star is still too shallow. The mirage is ultimately the mirage. Only a true world is perfect. Dongbu Shuang no longer felt arrogant. He could feel that the gap between them was as wide as the heavens and earth. With a single tap of his finger, he was able to open up a new world. If he had such strength, he would probably be able to destroy a mortal world with a flip of his hand. What would the sorcerer god and the great demon god be capable of? Time's up! A cold voice rang out. 1. A ripple forcefully enveloped Dongbu Shuang, and like a chick, he was forcefully thrown out of this space. The scene before Dongbu Shuang's eyes blurred. The feeling of forceful teleportation made his body feel uncomfortable and his mind was spinning. Senior Shui was so gentle when she teleported, but this black-robed old man is so rough. Dongbu, Persei called out. Dongbu Shuang also discovered that he had returned to the bottom of the sky-reaching vine. Beside him were Persei, Uncle Fu, Wu Mahai, Meishan Master, the golden-robed youth Kenwang, the black-robed man, and the black-robed girl. Brother Persei. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Haha. Being forcefully thrown out must be quite uncomfortable, right? Persei laughed and teased. I'm also very uncomfortable. After being thrown out, I've forgotten most of my original ideas. However, I've gained quite a lot. How do you feel? Astounding. Dongbu Shuang said. That's right, the creation of heaven and earth. This is something that only powerful existences can do. Persei nodded. It would be great if I could see it a few more times. Once. The more times you see it, the weaker the effect will be. Dongbu Shuang said. We're planning to cultivate here for 3 days. After that, we'll start walking up the sky-reaching vine. Persei smiled. It seems like you'll have to come with us. Of course, Dongbu Shuang said. Following which, Dongbu Shuang and the rest of the group of 8 began to cultivate at the foot of the sky-reaching vine. They tried their best to digest the insights they gained earlier, hoping to achieve a breakthrough. Before cultivating, Senior Shui also gave each of them a talisman. Boom! Beneath the sky-reaching vine, within the mirage world. After Dongbu Shuang drank the antidote, he started practicing his spear arts. He wasn't willing to let others see him cultivating. The other 7 sat cross-legged and meditated. However, the effect of Dongbu Shuang's comprehension was weaker. He still had to test his spear arts repeatedly. Boom. 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 Dongbu Shuang's spear was so fast that it left behind countless afterimages. Every time he struck, there would be a black dot at the tip of the spear. His spear arts were much faster than when he first entered the Crimson Rock Mountain. Awesome, awesome. Things are really different after reaching the Stage 3 realm. Dongbu Shuang revealed an expression of joy. His extreme piercing had broken through to the Stage 3 realm. Buzz. Swish. His spear was like a swimming dragon. Occasionally, countless spear shadows bloomed like snowflakes, and occasionally, it was like a divine dragon swinging its tail. Unknowingly, 3 days had passed. I'm still lacking some feeling. Dongbu Shuang felt slightly regretful. After practicing his spear arts for 3 days straight, he had only broken through his extreme piercing. His star and mirage were still lacking. The stage 3 realm isn't a big hurdle. I've already broken through my extreme piercing, but my star and mirage are still lacking. Dongbu Shuang wasn't in a hurry. Let's go. Dongbu Shuang and the other 7 followed the incomparably thick trunk of the sky-reaching vine and flew upwards rapidly. The trunk of the sky-reaching vine was so thick that the naked eye couldn't see the end of it clearly. There were even countless vines coiling around the trunk. Dongbu Shuang and the rest were flying close to the trunk. The further away they were from the trunk, the stronger the undercurrent in the dark starry sky was. This time, they flew for an even longer time. They flew for a total of 9 days. Knowing that there wouldn't be any danger along the way, Dongbu Shuang controlled himself to drink the antidote every 2 hours. The first vine leaf. Shuang and the others continued flying upwards, only to feel an unseen obstruction. It was as if there was a layer of barrier blocking them. They looked down at the side. There was an incomparably huge vine leaf growing out of the trunk of the sky-reaching vine. Previously, the countless vines had some very small vine leaves, but they were all very ordinary. But this incomparably large vine leaf was too exaggerated. From afar, the surface area of this vine leaf was probably even larger than the Xia people's world. This sky-reaching vine was truly worthy of being a world deity. Young Transcendents. The green-haired Shiwei appeared on the trunk beside them. Senior Shiwei. Dongbu Shuang and the rest bowed respectfully. 5 vine leaves. This is the test set by the Sacred Master for the Transcendents, Shiwei said. The earlier ones were too simple. This is the true test. If you pass all of them, you will become an honorary disciple of the Sacred Master. You will also receive many privileges as an honorary disciple. The 8 of them, including Dongbu Shuang, were all filled with anticipation. After becoming an honorary disciple, one would be able to obtain some treasures. Among them, there were some that were extremely attractive to world deities. Persei, Wu Ma Hai, and the lords of Ulan were all sent down for the sake of these treasures. As for the antidote? Since they had already become honorary disciples, the antidote should be a small matter. All of you should know the method to pass through the first vine leaf. The green-haired Shiwei pointed at the center of the incomparably huge vine leaf. At the very center there is a long vine. This long vine is directly connected to the main trunk of the sky-reaching vine. As long as you reach that long vine, you will have succeeded. Then, you will be able to follow the long vine to the second vine leaf. However, the entire first vine leaf contains countless fortuitous encounters, as well as dangers. Before reaching the long vine, you must be careful. The green-haired Shiwei smiled after finishing. I wish you all good luck. I hope that I will be able to see all of you on the second vine leaf. Shiwei's figure then merged into the main trunk of the sky-reaching vine. We will make a move first, the Maishan master said. Hua. The Maishan master brought the white-robed girl and the black-robed man down, flying towards the huge vine leaf. AI! The golden-robed youth, Ken Wang, was about to say something, but the Maishan master and the rest had already set off. He then looked at Persei's group. Brother Persei, shall we go together? Wu Ma Hai also turned his head to look at Persei and the rest, squeezing out a smile. Persei, Dongbu Shuang, let's go together! Chapter 323. The golden-robed youth Ken Wang and Wu Ma Hai both looked towards Persei's team. Our team has enough people, Persei said. I have God-grade scrolls, I'll give them all to you. Wu Ma Hai squeezed out a smile and tried his best to persuade. Don't worry, later on, I'll definitely scout ahead and fight at the forefront. Ken Wang also looked towards Persei and Dongbu Shuang. I'm also willing to give Brother Persei the God-grade scrolls. Dongbu Shuang watched from the side. It was better to let Persei decide. God-grade scrolls? Yes, they were very useful. But Ken Wang and Wu Ma Hai were both transcendent knights, they couldn't use scrolls. Even if they took it, it would be useless. In Ken Huang's team, the bewitching woman Shui Wei was a transcendent mage, and in Wu Ma Hai's team, the tall and skinny man Ba Han could also use God-grade scrolls. Unfortunately, they were both dead. Our team has God-grade scrolls, and you should understand that the more people there are in the team, the more dangerous it will be. Sorry, there's no other way, let's go, Persei said. Persei, Dongbu Shuang, and Uncle Fu all dove down. Humph. Wu Ma Hai looked down, his eyes filled with anger. It's normal not to bring us along. Wu Ma Hai, why don't we work together? This first fine leaf world is strange and unpredictable, and danger can appear at any time. If the two of us work together, we'll be able to resist the danger, the golden-robed youth Ken Wang said. But if the two of us work together, the danger will be greater. The possibility of death is higher. Wu Ma Hai snorted coldly. Let's just leave it to fate. Xiao! Wu Ma Hai also dove down. The golden-robed youth Ken Wang stood alone in midair next to the sky-reaching vine, lightly shaking his head. This was really bad. It was too dangerous to stay in the first fine leaf world without the use of God-grade scrolls. I'll definitely succeed. I definitely will. The golden-robed youth, Ken Wang, murmured to himself as he dove down as well. Dongbu Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu landed at the edge of the first fine leaf world. Dongbu Shuang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Wu Ma Hai and Ken Wang separated from each other. Brother Persei, the first and second vine leaf worlds are going to be troublesome, Dongbu Shuang said. We will also need Brother Dongbu Shui Ying's mirage doppelganger to help us investigate, Persei added. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Crimson Rock Mountain was filled with layers upon layers of danger, and the further it went, the more individual the danger became. Just like the world of the 5 leaves of the sky-reaching vine. The first vine leaf world, the second vine leaf world. At least they could move together. From the third vine leaf world onwards, it was a test of individual strength. They could no longer fight together. Of course, because he could move together with Persei and the others, Dongbu Shuang would have a much easier time in the first 2 vine leaf worlds. Regarding the first vine leaf world, Dongbu, your Xia people's information is more detailed. Persei looked into the distance. On this enormous vine leaf world, there were undulating mountain ranges and even some flat roads. There was also wilderness, and in the distance, there were even strange metal buildings. The demigods of my Xia people did not dare to hope to pass through the entire sky-reaching vine. Thus, they came to this first vine leaf world in search of fortuitous encounters. Dongbu Shuang laughed. Try to get as many treasures as possible. If there's any danger, immediately crush the talisman and give up. Because we've always been searching for fortuitous encounters, the records of this world are especially detailed. This time, we can't take any risks, Persei said. The 3 of us will move together, and the dangers we'll encounter will be very strong. Try not to provoke them. Understood. Dongbu Shuang nodded. According to the original plan, if the poison was cured at Senior Shiwei's place, then Dongbu Shuang would stay in the first vine leaf world for as long as possible. He would search for areas and try to get as many treasures as possible. He could get a dozen deity warriors, or even deity weapons, etc. All of these were possible. But now was not the time to play around. Try to avoid trouble. Because the greater the fortuitous encounter, the greater the danger. Look at that pagoda. Persei pointed into the distance. Dongbu Shuang and Uncle Fu looked over. With a glance, they could faintly see a silver-gray pyramid in the weeds in the distance. Level 7-star pagoda? Uncle Fu exclaimed. Villa Master! This is a star pagoda, a level 7-star pagoda. Envious? Persei shook his head. I'm envious too. It's more than our flying sword villa's accumulated wealth over countless years. We can even sell it and buy 1 or 2 peak stage deity slaves. But in this first vine leaf world there's a rule. The greater the fortuitous encounter, the greater the danger. Dongbush Shuang was speechless. By peak stage deity slaves? There are slaves in the deity realm? Deities as slaves? Dongbush Shuang couldn't help but ask. Deity realm? Persei looked at Dongbush Shuang and sighed. The deity realm is much more strict and cruel than you think. Dongbush Shuang fell into deep thought. I heard that when Crimson Rock Mountain was in the deity realm, the first fine leaf world didn't have so many treasures. Persei said. After that powerful existence died, Crimson Rock Mountain fell into the mortal world. Instead, it put many precious treasures in the first fine leaf world. It's probably to attract more and stronger demigods. Although Dongbush Shuang was also envious, the Xia people's intelligence had long recorded that the more dazzling and powerful a treasure was, the more one shouldn't touch it. Ancestor Black Wind was lucky enough to get his hands on some deity realm warriors. Prepare to depart. Persei said. Uncle Fu cast the spell. Yes. The bald old man Uncle Fu took out a gray deity rank scroll and gently crushed it. 1. The deity rank scroll immediately shattered, and 2 gray streams of air entered Uncle Fu's eyes. His eyes also carried a deep gray color, as though he could see through everything. Spatial eyes. Persei said. With this spell, we'll be much safer. The spatial eyes was a deity rank scroll specially prepared for the first fine leaf world. For example, the Maishan master, Wu Ma Hai, and Ken Huang all brought it with them. However, Wu Ma Hai and Ken Huang couldn't use deity rank scrolls, so they could only pitifully risk their lives. Although the Maishan master had grasped the complete true meaning of space, unless he condensed the deity heart of space, his perception of space couldn't compare to the spatial eyes. This was a deity rank spatial spell that was painstakingly refined, and it focused on scouting. Dongbua, I'll have to trouble your Mirage avatar to scout ahead, Persei said. No problem. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Previously, Persei's team configuration was very good. An old thief was in charge of scouting for danger. Uncle Fu was in charge of using deity rank scrolls. With the 2 of them, Persei could easily pass through the first 2 vine leaf worlds. As for the last 3, Uncle Fu and the others had to stop at the 3rd vine leaf world and separate from Persei. Dongbush Shuang had been in this team before they arrived, so he had some merit. Persei couldn't refuse. Secondly, his Mirage avatar could also help scout for danger. As for Wu Ma Hai and the golden-clothed youth Ken Huang, they could only pray for their own good. Let's go. Dongbush Shuiying's 9 Mirage avatars were scattered thousands of kilometers in front, behind, left, and right. Persei, Uncle Fu, and Dongbush Shuiying's main body also began to advance towards the center of the first vine leaf world. At the very center, dozens of kilometers away from that vine, beside a hill, there were a few rocks. Among the rocks, there seemed to be nothing. Even if they tried to scout, they wouldn't be able to find anything. Because the space here had overlapped, apart from the normal space, there was also a hidden space. Inside the overlapped hidden space, a dark-skinned youth wrapped in white cloth was sitting cross-legged. He was the Lords of Ulan, who had entered Crimson Rock Mountain a month earlier than Dongbush Shuiying's group. As a demon of the Dark Abyss, he could naturally use deity rank scrolls with deity rank scrolls. Moreover, he was alone, so it was relatively easy for him to reach the vine. Dong. A faint fluctuation came from afar. Battle? The dark-skinned youth immediately opened his eyes, revealing a pair of faintly glowing golden eyes. He grinned, revealing his pure white teeth. Are you here? Are you finally here? Dongbush Shuang, you killed Noan and Ku Meng. Without them to scout for me, you caused me to be poisoned by the voodoo poison and suffer from constant pain. How could I let you go? The dark-skinned youth's eyes were filled with killing intent. Having climbed up from the bottom of the dark abyss, he was a vengeful person. Although he had been poisoned by the voodoo poison, the toxicity was weaker than Dongbush Shuiying's, and the concentration was also much lower. After all, he had only been stabbed once. After adapting for so long, he could already fight without being affected. I came a month earlier, and painstakingly gathered some treasures. Don't wish swaying, I've been waiting for you. When you reach the end, it will also be the time of your death. The dark-skinned youth coldly snorted, then closed his eyes and silently waited. Chapter 324. The sky was always dark, and there were always stars in the night sky. Of course, these were all arranged by the master of Crimson Rock Mountain. Under the night sky, within the huge vine-leaf world, Dombush Swaying and the other two were currently at the foot of a barren mountain. They had a bonfire lit, and were roasting meat. From time to time, they would cut off a piece of meat to eat and drink delicious fruit wine. Occasionally, they would intentionally raise their heads to look at the dazzling stars in the night sky. Comfortable. Dombush Swaying revealed a smile. It's been 6 days, I can finally relax. It's all thanks to Brother Dombush Swaying. If not for you and Manor Master, I would have died in these 6 days. The golden-robed bald old man, Uncle Fu, chuckled. Ai, everyone has their own responsibilities. If not for Uncle Fu's ability to detect enemies from afar, we wouldn't have had it so easy, Dombush Swaying said. Persei also nodded. In these 6 days, we've suffered a total of 15 attacks. Other than the 6 sudden attacks, the other 9 were from afar. According to the intelligence, we're currently at the center of the vine-leaf world. There shouldn't be any more dangers along the way. There's still about 300,000 kilometers left. After we finish eating and drinking, we'll fly over in one go. Amen. Dombush Swaying and the golden-robed bald old man nodded. According to the intelligence provided by the world deity-level existences. After passing through the first vine-leaf world, excluding the dangers that accompanied the fortuitous encounter, they would suffer 15 attacks. After enduring all 15 attacks, there would be no more attacks. Dombush Swaying was inwardly rejoicing. Fortunately, they had Uncle Fu's space eyes, which could detect enemies from afar and allow them to be prepared. They could even rely on speed to defeat the enemies. Even if they suddenly rushed out from some hidden space, Uncle Fu would still be able to detect them. If not for Uncle Fu, those enemies would most likely sneak right in front of them and directly surround and assassinate them. That would be a nightmare. Let's go. Persei stood up. Kakik. Dombush Swaying, on the other hand, finished the bone in his hand in 2 mouthfuls. With a flip of his hand, he took out a flask of wine and drank a mouthful of the antidote. Domba, do you feel anything after being tortured by the voodoo poison and eating meat and drinking wine? Persei couldn't help but ask with a smile. Of course I feel it. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try. Dombush Swaying teased. I don't want to try. I can't forget the way the lords of Ulan howled, Persei said. The 3 of them quickly flew under the night sky. As they flew, they chatted along the way. It was very relaxing. This was because he knew that there was no danger other than fortuitous encounters. Naturally, it was very easy. As for fortuitous encounters? Dombush Swaying's Mirage Avatar was scouting ahead of them. The 3 of them followed the path that the Mirage Avatar had taken before, so they were naturally very safe. As he flew, he got closer and closer to the central long vine. The first vine-leaf world is still relatively easy, Dombush Swaying thought. Although there were some problems, he and Persei could work together to solve them easily. Just when Dombush Swaying was in a good mood, suddenly. One! As Dombush Swaying's group of 3 flew, they suddenly collided with a spatial ripple. Following that, the 3 of them disappeared. What happened? The expressions of Dombush Swaying, Persei, and Uncle Fu changed greatly. They were clearly flying, and their speed wasn't fast. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken 6 days to travel 6 million kilometers. Why did they suddenly appear here? This is... Dombush Swaying observed carefully. This was a huge sealed cabin. The sealed cabin was 1,000 meters long, 300 meters wide, and 300 meters tall. The sealed cabin was completely empty. There was only a statue in the corner, and a chest at its feet. It was a statue of a fat warrior holding a mace, and the chest was made of black metal. This shouldn't be the case. This path was clearly taken by the Mirage Avatar. If the Mirage Avatar didn't enter, how did we enter? Uncle Fu was puzzled. Fortuitous encounter. Persei frowned. We met with a fortuitous encounter. This is troublesome. Dongbush Shuang also frowned. Uncle Fu's expression changed slightly. We tried to avoid fortuitous encounters along the way, but we still entered. The demigods of the Xia people desperately wanted to find fortuitous encounters, but Dongbush Shuang, Persei, and the others tried their best to avoid them. This was because no one knew if the fortuitous encounter was big or small, but they were afraid that it would be a big one. This was because the big danger brought about by a big fortuitous encounter might be something they couldn't resist, causing them to lose their lives. Fortuitous encounters, other than those that appear publicly, there are some that are hidden. Some are not only hidden, but also constantly moving, Persei said helplessly. Our luck was too good, so we met one. Be careful, danger can descend at any time. Yes. Dongbush Shuang nodded. Persei, Dongbush Shuang, and Uncle Fu all looked at the corner of the sealed cabin, at the fat warrior statue and the black metal chest at its feet. There was nothing else here. Only the statue and the chest. The statue and the chest were very likely the spoils of war from a fortuitous encounter. They weren't afraid of ordinary spoils of war, but they were afraid of spoils of war that were too precious. It looks ordinary, but if I'm not wrong, that statue is a deity warrior, Persei said. The deity warriors in the first fine leaf world are almost all demigod rank. Dongbush Shuang nodded. Demigod rank deity warriors were considered relatively ordinary. Usually, they had the strength of the top 10 demigods. Being in the top 3 was already very powerful. Deity warriors were expensive. The most ordinary ones were at the level of the lords of Ulan. Therefore, a deity warrior was worth more than 100 demigod warriors. The danger it represented was also much higher. However, Dongbush Shuang didn't need it, because deity warriors were unable to enter the world of the Xia people. It's just a deity warrior? Dongbush Shuang relaxed slightly. This was a very simple fortuitous encounter. Even Ancestor Blackwind had gotten his hands on the 5 shadows and several other deity warriors. Something's not right. Dongbush Shuiying's pupils shrank. Maybe there's something else in the chest, Persei said. Suddenly, he noticed the change in Dongbush Shuiying's expression. Dongbush Shuiying immediately transmitted. Look at the armor of the deity warrior. Persei immediately looked carefully. He even used the formless law domain of the true meaning of 8 dragons to examine it. His expression immediately changed. The armor worn by the fat warrior statue, as well as the mace in its hands, were all deity weapons. Deity weapon? Persei and Dongbush Shuiying exchanged glances. They were both extremely nervous. Ordinary deity weapons were indeed more valuable than demigod warriors, but there was a limit to the difference. However, the value of armor and mace was completely different. A defensive armor-type deity weapon was usually equivalent to 10 attack-type deity weapons. This was based on the fact that they were all deity low-grade deity weapons. There's even a defensive deity weapon. This is going to be troublesome. Persei frowned as he transmitted. Donghua, send your Mirage doppelganger to take a look at what's inside the chest. Once the chest is touched, that deity warrior might be alerted. I'm afraid that danger will descend upon us, Dongbush Shuang said. Amen. Persei also made his preparations. Dongbush Shuang nodded. With a thought, a Mirage doppelganger appeared out of thin air. This doppelganger looked exactly like Dongbush Shuang. It appeared beside the fat warrior statue and reached for the chest with lightning speed, intending to open it. Scram! The eyes of the fat warrior statue suddenly brightened. He waved the mace in his hands. Since he was right beside the chest, his actions were naturally fast. The mace directly hit the Mirage doppelganger's body. Boom! The Mirage doppelganger was much weaker. It only had the strength of an experienced demigod. It was immediately sent flying, and a huge hole appeared in its chest. This deity warrior is not much of a threat. Donghua Shuang transmitted. The fat warrior statue was only a demigod, and was probably ranked in the top 5 demigods. As for deity weapons? The deity warrior could not activate deity weapons. Deity weapons were just for show. Be careful! Donghua Shui Ying's expression changed. What's wrong? Persei and Uncle Fu were puzzled. They tried their best to investigate, but they could not find anything. Hua! A dark green tentacle as thick as an arm appeared out of thin air. The tentacle swung and lashed at Persei like a whip. The power was so great that the tentacles lashed out, causing the entire enclosed space in the cabin to tremble continuously. Chapter 325. Persei's eyes were filled with ruthlessness as he punched with his right hand. A black dragon could be faintly seen roaring. The power of Persei's punch was completely restrained, and there was not a single ripple in this enclosed cabin. Pun! The moment his fist collided with the huge, dark green tentacle, the power immediately exploded. A sinister power instantly spread along the tentacle and into the entire body of the unknown creature hidden in the void. Be careful, it's a mirage creature with 8 tentacles. Donghua Shuang immediately transmitted a message. At the same time, his figure flashed and entered the mirage. Rumble! It seemed that the mirage creature was angry that it did not gain the upper hand in a direct confrontation, and even felt pain. In an instant, dark green tentacles danced out of the void. In an instant, 5 long tentacles enveloped Persei at the same time. Persei's expression was slightly ferocious as 8 arms suddenly appeared on his body. Pun! Boom! F***CK. In terms of close combat techniques, he was probably ranked first among the people who entered Crimson Rock Mountain this time. The true meaning of 8 dragons contained all sorts of complicated combat techniques. Some were fierce, some were sinister, and some were strange. Moreover, they all contained the concept of life and death and indestructible. Coupled with the true meaning of only me with 8 arms, his close combat strength was terrifying. Back when he was crossing the Meteor Bridge, even 3 silver-armored swordsmen couldn't do anything to him. Ha! While blocking the tentacles head-on, 2 of Persei's hands grabbed one of the tentacles and suddenly pulled it out. Come out! Persei's true meaning of only me surged with power, surpassing all the transcendence in Crimson Rock Mountain this time. Pa! That tentacle was actually broken, and the other tentacles were quickly retracted. That broken tentacle fell on the floor of the enclosed cabin, twisting and struggling as it rapidly tunneled into the mirage. Mirage creature? Persei frowned and transmitted a message. Donghua, it seems like I'll have to rely on you. Leave it to me. Donghua Shui Ying's voice echoed in the cabin. Inside the ethereal extent, the white-robed Shuang licked his lips. There was still some bitterness in his mouth. This was the antidote to the 100-bitter restoration. He held on to a fiery red spear as he looked at the octopus-like creature in front of him. One of its broken tentacles had returned to the mirage and was reconnected. It floated in the ethereal extent, its 8 tentacles stretching casually, covering an area of 20 to 30 meters. Its blood-red eyes were staring at Donghua Shuang. This is the first time I've encountered a mirage creature since entering Crimson Rock Mountain, Donghua Shuang thought to himself. Although he had previously met some creatures that could enter the mirage, such as the stone sculpture guardians and the deity-level flying venomous scorpions, they were not true mirage lifeforms. Inside the ethereal extent, they were greatly hindered. Their speed and power were all affected. Moreover, each of their moves in the ethereal extent would create strong energy fluctuations. Even in the outside world, he could sense them. But the mirage creatures were different. Inside the ethereal extent, they were free, unhindered, and silent. Just like the transcendent who had mastered the true meaning of mirage. True meaning of mirage? The octopus-like creature looked at Donghua Shuang and growled. Transcendent, your true meaning of mirage is so weak. You can't even merge with the ethereal extent. You haven't reached it either, have you? Donghua Shuang held the spear in his hand. I relied on my innate talent unlike you. Your true meaning of mirage is so weak. I'm afraid your strength is far from that eight-armed transcendent outside, the octopus-like creature said in a low voice. After fighting with Persei for a short while, it was already wary of Persei. That eight-armed transcendent was really strong in close combat. It would be hard for the octopus-like creature to win. But since it was inside the ethereal extent, that eight-armed transcendent could not do anything to it. This was the scary thing about the mirage creatures. They could easily ambush their enemies. However, it was hard for their enemies to find them. But this time, Dongbush Shuiying was in the team. That eight-armed transcendent outside is very powerful. As for my strength, you will know once you try, Dongbush Shuiying said. Who? The octopus-like creature instantly waved its tentacles. 8 tentacles immediately enveloped Shuiying, each of them filled with a majestic aura. It can clash head-on with Persei. In terms of strength, this octopus-like creature has definitely reached the deity level. However, it seems like its laws of profound mysteries are slightly weaker. Dongbush Shuiying's figure moved. Xiao. This movement shocked the octopus-like creature. So fast. His extreme piercing had reached the stage 3 realm. Dongbush Shuiying's movement speed had also soared to the standard of 500 km per second. In close combat, his movements were naturally much faster. Hong! The spear spun and drew an arc in the air. It was as if a huge star had suddenly expanded and exploded with a dazzling light. Following that, it rapidly shrank into a single point. The octopus-like mirage creature tried to block it. However, Dongbush Shuiying's spear contained a whirlpool-like gravitational force and an extremely fast speed. Its tentacles could not block it in time. Thus, Dongbush Shuiying's spear pierced its ugly head. Its head instantly caved in and disappeared. However, its 8 tentacles quickly retreated, and its head grew out once again. Such a strong life force! Dongbush Shuiying muttered to himself. My spear art was able to kill General Ku Meng with a single strike. This octopus-like mirage creature was actually able to withstand it. And this secret skill of mine has yet to be perfected. Once it is perfected, it will probably be much better. His extreme piercing had just reached the stage 3 realm. His true meaning of star was still at the peak of the stage 2 realm. The secret skill, Star Meteor Annihilation, formed from 2 different true meanings, naturally had to be modified. The difference in strength between the two made it slightly troublesome to combine them. Shuiying needed to spend more time perfecting this secret skill. However, no matter what, the secret skill's strength was still 30 to 40% stronger than before he entered Crimson Rock Mountain. The octopus-like mirage creature was also startled by this spear. Following which, it charged forward even more violently. This time, its 8 tentacles coordinated even more perfectly, trying its best not to leave any openings. Xiao! 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 Dongbush Shuiying transformed into countless afterimages. Although the octopus-like mirage creature's tentacles were fast, they were still within Dongbush Shuiying's range of endurance. The spear struck again and again. After the octopus-like mirage creature was pierced 5 times, it finally howled and tried to escape. Trying to escape? Dongbush Shuiying chased after it and continued to use killer moves. The octopus-like mirage creature's body collapsed and was annihilated again and again. After a total of 12 spear strikes, it finally turned into nothingness. Persei and Uncle Fu were waiting anxiously. They could also faintly feel the undulations within the mirage world. Clearly, the battle was quite intense. But following that, the white-clothed Dongbush Shuiying walked out of the mirage world and revealed a smile. It's settled. Ha! Persei and Uncle Fu immediately revealed expressions of joy. Fortunately, we have Brother Donghua. Otherwise, that mirage creature would be very difficult to deal with. Its strength and speed have both reached the deity level. Moreover, it is hidden within the mirage world. It can suddenly ambush us at close range, and when we attack the mirage world, its power will be greatly reduced. Persei sighed. The mirage assassination was very troublesome because its attacks were all at close range, and it had 8 tentacles. Amen. Dongbush Shuiying nodded. Brother Persei's close combat skills can be said to be perfect. If it was someone else, it would be very difficult to survive the sneak attack of this mirage creature. It was originally dangerous. However, Dongbush Shuang had grasped the true meaning of mirage, causing the mirage creature, which was originally used for sneak attacks, to fight head-on with Dongbush Shuang. Let's take a look at the spoils of war first, Uncle Fu said. Dongbush Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu all looked at the fat warrior. The fat warrior was currently tied up by a chain, and the other end of the chain was in Persei's hand. Being tied up, the fat warrior couldn't break free no matter how much he struggled. With his meager strength, he had no way of resisting in front of Persei. Dongbush Ying's thoughts moved. A mirage doppelganger appeared and directly walked towards the black metal chest, wanting to open it. Amen? Persei and Uncle Fu's expressions suddenly changed. What's wrong? Dongbush Shuang looked at them. Wu Ma-hai is dead, Persei said in a low voice. Just now. Chapter 326. What? Dongbush Shuang was shocked. Wu Ma-hai, the leader of the Temple of the Earth Gods team. He died in the first Vine Leaf world? Dongbush Shuang was in disbelief. Yes. Uncle Fu added. He and we both had Qi doppelgangers and Mana doppelgangers in the Xia people's world. Just now, his Qi doppelganger dissipated in front of us. He was very unwilling before he died. Persei nodded. He had just seen the callous golden-armored youth, Wu Ma-hai, with his malevolent and crazed expression before his death. It made Qingjiu feel a sense of sympathy for the death of a rabbit. Wu Ma-hai had died in the first Vine Leaf world. What about him? What about him, Persei? Could he really survive the test of the 5 Vine Leaf worlds and become a protector disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain? Sigh. Dongbush Shuang shook his head lightly. Although Wu Ma-hai was cold and had wanted to ask for 5 deity-grade scrolls from the Xia people, Dongbush Shuang did not hate him. After all, it was just a deal. He did not agree to it. However, he did not expect their team to be annihilated so quickly. He and Ken Huang are unable to use deity-grade scrolls. The first Vine Leaf world is very dangerous. I heard Ken Huang say that he has already fought 35 times, Persei said. Although Wu Ma-hai is a man of few words, he has probably fought many times. Including the battle with the mirage creature, we have only fought 16 times. Uncle Fu also said. Not only were there many battles, but they were also very sudden. Moreover, with so many battles, they must have unintentionally entered some dangerous places. There were no spells like the Eyes of Space. Without Dongbush Shuiying's mirage doppelganger, Wu Ma-hai's death was very normal. Comparatively, Ken Huang was more proficient in long-range attacks. Although it was not as good as the Eyes of Space, it could still detect enemies. Wu Ma-hai's death made Dongbush Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu tense up again. Let's see what's inside the box. The mirage doppelganger walked up to the black metal chest. With a twist, the chest was opened. The black metal chest was empty, and there was only a single bronze talisman inside. It's the combat soldier seal. Persei nodded. That's right. Although a mirage creature that specializes in assassination has the combat power of a deity, it has an offensive divine weapon, a defensive divine armor, and a deity warrior. It's not bad. Dongbush Shuang nodded as well. That mirage creature was actually very difficult to deal with. Even if it encountered him, who could also walk in the mirage, it would still be difficult to deal with. The treasures were not bad. The demigod ancestors of the Xia people had come here many times in history, but none of them had obtained a divine artifact. Yet he had obtained it the moment he arrived. Brother Dongbua, it's all thanks to you this time, Persei said. You killed that mirage creature. Logically speaking, the spoils of war should belong to you, Brother Dongbua. However, I'll shamelessly ask Brother Dongbua to lend me this defensive divine artifact. How about it? If I survive, I'll definitely return this divine artifact. If I die, returning it will depend on luck. There's no need to say more. Brother Percy took care of me in the vine leaf world. I don't have any battle chi, so I can't activate the divine artifact. Giving it to me is just for show. Brother Percy, take it. You said that if you survive Crimson Rock Mountain, you have to give me the divine artifact. Dongbu Shuang joked. Of course, of course. Percy revealed a joyful expression. Within Crimson Rock Mountain, a defensive divine artifact would greatly increase one's survivability. As for successfully leaving alive? What was the use of armor then? By the time he returned to the deity world, his flying sword Villa would have a defensive divine artifact. Moreover, since he had done such a great deed, the world deity-level existences had sworn to reward him with astonishing rewards. Actually, Percy understood that there was a high chance that he would die along the way. Moreover, he would be acting alone in the future. Even if he died, he might not be able to return the divine artifact. I'll shamelessly say no more. Percy said, Brother Dongbu, please hurry up and refine this combat talisman. Yes. Dongbu Shuang extended his hand, and the bronze talisman immediately flew over. He immediately refined it with a drop of his blood. The fat warrior, who had been struggling, immediately stopped struggling. Percy retracted his shackles. Greetings, master. The fat warrior said respectfully. What's your name? Dongbu Shuang asked. Master, my name is Tu Shuang. The fat warrior said. Not long after I was successfully refined, I was teleported to the Vine Leaf world by Senior Shiwei. Put down the 2 divine artifacts. You won't be able to use them even if you hold them. Dongbu Shuang said. Yes, yes. The fat warrior hurriedly put down the spiked mace and took off the armor. These weren't mine in the first place, and I don't like these weapons. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand and kept the spiked mace. Percy grinned and immediately refined the defensive armor. The divine artifacts within Crimson Rock Mountain had one advantage. They were all ownerless, and could be easily refined. Percy's entire body was immediately covered with a layer of silver-gray armor. What weapons are usually suitable for you? Dongbu Shuang asked. He didn't dare to let this deity warrior use the divine artifact. It would be too late for regrets if it was taken away during battle. If he brought the spiked mace back to the Xia people would be able to use it. Shield, great axe. The fat warrior said. I have a shield here, but no great axe. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand and threw a shield and a saber over. Take them first. Back then, the demonic faction had plundered a large number of weapons. The important ones had all been given to the Xia people, but they still kept a few. For example, there were 3 demigod-rank spears. They were worried that when using extreme piercing, the stellar fire cloud spear would fail during the material exclusion and be broken by the enemy's armor. Naturally, they had to prepare a backup weapon. Before coming to Crimson Rock Mountain, they had prepared 2 shields, as well as other sabers and staffs. These were actually the demigod-rank weapons left behind by General Ku Meng and Nguyen Nguyen. Yes. The fat warrior immediately grabbed the shield with one hand and the saber with the other. Master, I, Tu Shuang, swear to be loyal to Master and fight for Master. He was like a statue, not moving at all. He was so stifled. Seeing this, Dongbu Shuang smiled. There will be a time for you to fight. However, it probably wouldn't be of much use. Master, if you want to go out, I'll open the door. Tu Shuang said. He quickly walked to the side of the cabin wall and lightly placed his palm on it. Ka ka ka. The sealed cabin door slowly opened. It revealed the scenery of the mountains outside. I'll let you out when the battle begins. Dongbu Shuang waved his hand and stored Tu Shuang away. Let's go. Dongbu Shuang, Percy, and Uncle Fu walked out of the cabin. Just as they walked out of the cabin, when Dongbu Shuang and the rest looked back, they could no longer see the cabin. Without hesitation, they sent their mirage doppelgangers to scout ahead. Uncle Fu scanned the surroundings while Dongbu Shuang and the other 2 quickly rushed towards the core of the long vine. Dongbu Shuang and the rest were already very close to the long vine. Following the high speed, they traveled for 100,000 li, 50,000 li, 30,000 li. On top of a tall mountain, there were many trees and plants. Among them, there was a large tree gazing into the distance. And then? A pair of eyes appeared on the trunk of this large tree. It gazed into the distance, and saw Dombush Shuang, Persei, and Uncle Fu who were currently rushing over. Master, we've discovered Dombush Shuang. Beside the long vine, within a few rocks several tens of li away. Within the hidden space. The black-skinned youth, the Lords of Ulan, who was wrapped in white cloth, suddenly opened his eyes. Are they here? The Lords of Ulan also stood up and looked in that direction. He was in the hidden space and could see the outside world. However, the outside world couldn't discover him. Unless he walked out of the hidden space. Originally, this hidden space had been ambushed by enemies. After being killed by the Lords of Ulan, he temporarily hid here. As time passed, I see them. The Lords of Ulan also saw them. More than 6,000 li away, there were currently 3 figures rushing over happily. Naturally, Dombush Shuang and the other 2 were happy, because they were very close to the core of the long vine. Little darlings, let's move. The Lords of Ulan grinned. Approximately 1,300 li to the left of the long vine, there was a low mountain. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the belly of the mountain. Kill! Kill it! Suddenly, a turbulent undulation came from the belly of the mountain. A 4-hooved mutated beast that was fleeing in panic was instantly surrounded by over 10 dark green tentacles that stretched out from nothingness. In an instant, the tentacles entangled it. Then, this 4-hooved mutated beast was completely torn into many pieces. However, there were still other 4-hooved mutated beasts that were fleeing in panic in the direction of Dombush Shuang and the others. As Dombush Shuang and the other 2 rushed over, they were all in a good mood. The tall long vine was already incomparably clear to them. However, even if they were to approach it, they still had to be careful. The observational range of the eyes of space was 3,000 li. As for Dombush Shui Ying's true meaning of mirage, it could cover 10,000 li. Dombush Shui Ying's expression changed. He turned his head and looked at 1,300 li to the left of the long vine. The space of the first vine leaf world was strange. There were many enemies that could move stealthily, and even his mirage could not detect them. However, he could still detect mirage creatures. At the belly of the mountain, inside the mirage, there were many 8-clawed mirage creatures rushing out. Their auras were not any weaker than the one that had been fighting earlier. More than 108-clawed mirage creatures rushed out. They were chasing after a group of 4-hooved mutated beasts that were rushing in their direction. 8-clawed mirage creatures! Dombush Shui Ying's expression changed drastically. He anxiously transmitted a message. 139 of them! They are charging towards us. Run! The creatures of the first vine leaf world would kill any outsider without mercy. 139 of them? Persei's eyes widened as well. 8-clawed mirage creatures could be considered to have reached the deity rank. More than 100? Even 100 stone sculpture guards would be very dangerous to them. Why are there so many mirage creatures, and why are they charging towards us? Uncle Fu couldn't believe it. Although he didn't dare to believe it, he didn't dare to hesitate. He also turned and fled. Boom! A figure appeared in midair in the distance. It was a barefooted, dark-skinned young man wrapped in white cloth. He tore a scroll in his hand. A terrifying force instantly enveloped an area of 10,000 li. Countless golden threads appeared. Under the control of the Lords of Ulan, they frantically surged towards Dombush Shuang and the other 2, entangling Dombush Shuang and the other 2. Shuang, Chenjiu, and Uncle Fu could feel the omnipresent golden threads. They couldn't help but feel anxious as they turned their heads to look. They turned their heads to look and saw the dark-skinned young man in midair. Lords of Ulan! Dombush Shuang couldn't help but have a murderous look in his eyes. Ulan, I will definitely kill you! Persei's eyes were also bloodshot. He seemed to have gone mad. Ha ha, kill me! Let's talk after you survive the siege of more than 100 mirage creatures. His voice resounded around Dongbu Shuang and the others. The lords of Ulan in midair laughed coldly. Chapter 327. A group of four-hooved mutated beasts was fleeing in panic. Following them were more than 100 terrifying, borderline god-level 8-clawed mirage life forms hidden in the mirage. Dark green tentacles stretched out from the void, fast as lightning and extremely powerful. Either whipping or coiling, the four-hooved mutated beasts were quickly killed. Too terrifying. The lords of Ulan's expression changed as they watched. They immediately rushed towards the Corvine dozens of miles away. Because the distance was very close, and his speed was very fast, he crossed dozens of miles in an instant and landed on the Corvine. The 8-clawed lifeforms that had noticed him in the mirage gave up on him. This was because there was a rule in the first vine leaf world. As long as one successfully stepped onto the Corvine, they would pass the test of the first vine leaf world and would not be attacked again. Of course, demigod transcendents killing each other was an exception. The lords of Ulan grinned, revealing their pearly white teeth, and laughed strangely with some excitement. Although these 8-clawed mirage life forms have weak laws and profound mysteries, their strength and speed are all god level. Each of them is stronger than General Kumeng. Moreover, they are launching sneak attacks from the mirage. One-on-one, it would be very difficult for me. Not to mention so many of them attacking together. Persei, you are good at close combat. I'm afraid that with just 10 8-clawed mirage life forms, you will definitely lose. As for Dongbu Shuang, weren't you hiding in the mirage to make it difficult for others to attack you? Unfortunately, these 8-clawed monsters are all mirage life forms. The lords of Ulan had been waiting for this day for a long time. After their servants had detected the group of 8-clawed mirage life forms in the belly of the mountain, the lords of Ulan had been extremely excited and had been planning for this moment. Dongbu Shuang, Persei, Uncle Fu, and the others instantly understood that these 100 or so 8-clawed mirage life forms were not something they could resist at all. Therefore, their first thought was to turn and run. Damn it! Dongbu Shuang could feel the countless golden threads wrapping around his body. He even tried to enter the mirage, but the golden threads were still entangling him. This caused him to only be able to use 50% to 60% of his normal speed. At this speed, it was impossible for him to shake off the 8-clawed mirage creatures. Ulan! Persei was about to go crazy. What he was shouldering was not only his own life, but also the entire Flying Sword Manor. Uncle Fu, hurry up and leave. Crush the talisman and leave quickly. Persei transmitted anxiously. Wait for me in the Xia people's world. As long as I make it out alive, we can return to the God realm together. At this moment, the yellow-robed bald old man, Uncle Fu, was also anxious. He immediately took out several god-level scrolls and began to use them. No need to give it to me. Give it to Dinghua. Give it to him. Persei transmitted anxiously. I have a divine artifact armor, so there's no need to worry about my defense. Donghua won't be able to hold on. And, although Uncle Fu was completely inclined towards his Manor Master, he understood that the Manor Master was right. Since he already had a divine artifact armor, the mirage creatures couldn't ignore the armor and attack directly. Therefore, the defensive buffs from the divine grade scrolls would be a waste. Wah wah. 2 god-level scrolls were torn one after another. A red stream of light and a white mist enveloped Donghua Shuiying's body, causing Donghua Shuiying's body to seem to be covered with a layer of red and white gauze. Lock. Uncle Fu used another god-level scrolls. A formless gray gas seeped into the mirage realm, wrapping around the 8-clawed mirage creatures. At this moment, the 8-clawed mirage creatures had already killed the group of 4-hooved strange beasts. They had already set their eyes on Donghua Shuiying and the other 2. They were rushing over at high speed. The distance between the 2 sides was only 3,000 li. Sigh. Uncle Fu was anxious. This was a large-scale control formation that could bind the enemy. Whether it was the real world, the Mirage Realm, the shadow space, or so on. In short, it could permeate and bind all planes of the world. However, binding 139 mirage creatures at the same time would also disperse the formation's power, reducing the speed of each mirage creature by only 5%. If they were concentrated on 3 to 5 targets, their speed would probably be reduced by more than half. Unfortunately, reducing 3 to 5 would have a negligible effect on the overall situation. Was there any difference between being besieged by 139 mirage creatures and being besieged by 136? There was no difference. Because the mirage creatures were huge, they couldn't attack at the same time. Damn it. Uncle Fu's eyes were red with anger. Although he still had god-level scrolls on him, they were of no help. Hurry and leave. Persei, who was fleeing at high speed, urgently shouted. Manor Master, be careful. Uncle Fu clenched his teeth and crushed the talisman in his hand. Suddenly an invisible force descended and enveloped Uncle Fu's body. Fu! Uncle Fu disappeared into thin air. He was completely transported out of Crimson Rock Mountain. As long as he left Crimson Rock Mountain, Uncle Fu would no longer be able to help. Although he could enter again according to the rules, Crimson Rock Mountain had its own rules. The interval between 2 attempts was at least 100 years. Secondly, the gifts and talismans obtained through the Meteor Bridge could only be obtained once. If he entered again in the future, he wouldn't be able to obtain gifts or talismans. Persei fled with all his might. Persei, only 800 li left. Dongwu Shuang transmitted from the side. He also fled together, and didn't enter the mirage. Because the 8-clawed monster was a mirage creature, it made no difference whether he entered the mirage or not. It's useless to escape. Let's fight. Persei stopped. Dongwu Shuang also stopped. They were affected by the golden threads and couldn't get rid of them. They could only face them head-on. They're coming. Dongwu Shuang opened his mouth. Bang! The gravity domain was immediately released. The laws of profound mysteries avoided Persei and didn't affect Persei. These transcendents actually dare to make a move against us. Human, don't struggle. Just obediently accept your death. The 8-clawed monster's voice seeped into the real world. At the same time, dark green tentacles attacked from all directions. In an instant, dozens of long tentacles transformed into phantoms and enveloped over. Persei revealed his 8 arms and carefully blocked the attacks from all directions. Dongwu Shuang was also wielding a spear. The two of them were only 3 to 5 meters apart from each other. The 8-clawed monster's body was rather large. Hence, they were able to squeeze together and besiege Dongwu Shuang and Persei. There were only a dozen 8-clawed monsters. Dongwu Shuang and Persei each took on the responsibility. Each of them received an estimated 7 to 8 attacks. Dongwu, you be careful. I can't take care of you. Persei waved his 8 arms with great difficulty and desperately blocked the attacks from all directions. His arms and palms became very large. They were like 8 shields that blocked almost all the attacks from all directions. However, those dark green tentacles that stretched out from nothingness, apart from whipping, would also entangle, wanting to entangle Persei. Scram! Dongwu Shuang was slightly better. He could clearly observe every 8-clawed monster in the mirage. When they attacked, they were all under Dongwu Shuang's observation. Naturally, their reactions were faster. It was a pity. These 8-clawed monsters were rather large, but his gravity domain was not strong enough. Under the gravitational repulsion, their speed was probably only reduced by 10%. However, every 8-clawed monster had 8 tentacles. He could only see dozens of long tentacles surrounding him from the mirage and besieging him. Persei couldn't help him either. Boom! Pun! Dongwu Shuang used his spear technique again and again. He only used Star Meteor Annihilation once before he was besieged by the tentacles from all directions, forcing him to not dare to use it. This was because Star Meteor Annihilation wasn't coherent enough. He had to use moves that didn't seem to have any pauses. For example, the lightning-fast extreme piercing. He had to use it again and again to block the attacks from all directions. However, even so, in less than half a second, pung! A tentacle broke through the defense of the spear, and the soft tentacle whipped Dongbua Shui Ying's back. A surge of power, the power of a deity, caused Dongbua Shui Ying to be thrown forward uncontrollably. In front of him was a dense mass of tentacles that quickly enveloped him. Dongbua! Persei, who had 8 arms, was still barely holding on. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but feel anxious and pained. Chapter 1. Chapter 328. Ha ha ha, die, die. The eyes of the lords of Ulan, who was standing on the core vine in the distance, lit up with excitement and anticipation. He asked himself if he was in such a dangerous situation, even if there were 3 or 5 of him, the only result would be death, let alone him. Ha! The lords of Ulan suddenly frowned. Because Dongbua Shui Ying, who had been smashed and thrown forward by the tentacles, had actually disappeared into thin air. He entered the mirage? The lords of Ulan frowned. It's useless to enter the mirage. These 8 tentacled mirage creatures, their strength is not affected in the mirage. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see how you die. Inside the mirage, the 8 tentacled monsters that had originally surrounded Dongbua Shui Ying, as well as some of their own kind, looked at the human that had appeared in the mirage in shock. This human had also run into the mirage? Chi! Dongbua Shui Ying's palm instantly slashed the blade of the spear, leaving a smear of dark red. Dongbua Shui Ying had already been forced into a desperate situation. He could not think of any other way. Entering the mirage, you will also die. Immediately, a group of 8 tentacled monsters continued to besiege him. One after another, dark cyan tentacles enveloped him from all directions. Every tentacle's speed was extremely fast. Even if it was Shui Ying, even with his extremely fast extreme piercing, a single spear wouldn't be able to defend against so many tentacles. Pooh! 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 The spear turned into a mirage, dotted with cold stars. Every time it stabbed the tentacles that surrounded him, it would only break the skin, and the damage to their bodies was negligible. But, woo! Woo! One by one, the 8 tentacled monsters howled in pain. It was too painful. As long as one of the tentacles was stabbed, it would cause the 8 tentacled monsters so much pain that the other tentacles would also shrink back. They all began to roll around, swinging around randomly. Although the voodoo poison in his blood was much weaker, it was still terrifying to know that Dongbua Shui Ying was poisoned to the point that his soul trembled in pain. Even with Lord Yulan's temperament, when he was first stabbed, he cried out in pain. Ha! Upon seeing this, Dongbua Shui Ying hurriedly started to attack the 8 tentacled monsters that were surrounding Persei. The cold light of the spear tip carried a trace of dark red, making the 8 tentacled monsters howl every time. In the real world, Persei, who was on the verge of collapsing, was bewildered. This was because the number of tentacles reaching out of the ethereal extent to attack him had decreased greatly. Persei, quick! Run towards the core vine! These mirage creatures are affected by the pain caused by the voodoo poison, but it won't be long before they get used to it. Dongbua Shui Ying transmitted his voice. Xiao! While he was transmitting his voice, he hurriedly rushed toward the core long vine and smeared some of his blood on the spear's edge. But there were a total of 139 8 tentacles monsters. The other 8 tentacled monsters that were not attacked also roared and attacked. Dongbua Shui Ying still attacked again and again, using the weaker extreme piercing. But this was enough. One by one, the 8 tentacled monsters tasted the pain of the voodoo poison. After all, they were also made of flesh and blood, not deity realm warriors and the like. Under the penetration of the voodoo poison, they instantly howled. Damned human! What poison is this? Kill him! The pain could not be reduced, but the 8 tentacled monsters quickly adapted. After all, they were also creatures that had reached the deity realm. Pain, pain. At least they could still continue fighting. This kind of pain also filled them with even more hatred and killing intent. Dombush Shuang worked hard and only managed to stab 110 eight-tentacled monsters. The eight-tentacled monsters that were stabbed the earliest adapted and attacked again. So fast? Dombush Shuang also knew that they would adapt very quickly. Back then, the Lords of Ulan had adapted in an instant. Not only was Dombush Shuang attacked again, but Persei, who had started to flee, was also attacked again. Because there was no Dombush Shuang to help him share the burden. More than a dozen eight-tentacled monsters besieged him at the same time. Over 100 long, dark green tentacles covered the sky and covered the earth as they besieged him. Persei also revealed a look of despair. Bang bang bang. His 8 arms were perfect for defense. But a large number of tentacles entangled him from all directions again and again, like a large net. Persei was struggling, trying hard to break through, but this time, the tentacles were almost twice as many as before. Just a second later. Chi. A large number of tentacles completely wrapped him up. Densely packed, they formed a ball of entangled tentacles. Persei was completely wrapped inside. It's over. Persei was in despair. Although he had the deity armor, and these 8 tentacled monsters could not break his defense, he would not die. But he would be brought to the lair of these monsters. In the lair of so many monsters, he could not escape at all. If he could not escape, he would not be able to pass the test of the first vine leaf world. There was a time limit for a world deity to let him come down. Because it would not be long before the sorcerer god and the great demon god would start a war. At that time, they would no longer have the chance to enter Crimson Rock Mountain. This time, they had to succeed. It's over, it's over. Persei could not resist. He felt that he was completely trapped. It seemed that these 8 tentacled monsters were grabbing him and moving him. Ha ha, Persei is finished. The Lords of Ulan, who was standing on the core vine, saw that Persei was finally completely bound by the tentacles and dragged into the mirage. He revealed a look of joy. Only Dombush Shuang is left. With so many mirage creatures, he won't be able to hold on for long. But the Lords of Ulan also knew that Dombush Shuang was still holding on. Because he could feel the fluctuations of the battle within the mirage. Inside the mirage, Dombush Shuang was indeed holding on. Pooh! The long spear pierced the tentacles that besieged him. Woo! The 8 tentacled monsters immediately howled. Although they were already suffering from this pain, when they were pierced again, Dombush Ying's blood that contained voodoo poison seeped in, causing the concentration of the poison in the bodies of these 8 tentacled monsters to increase. Naturally, the pain was also intensifying. Therefore, although they were all getting angrier, but under the attack of Dombush Ying's long spear, the 8 tentacled monsters were also affected. The power of my poison is still weaker. Every time I use it, the effect on the battle will be lower and lower. Dombush Ying was extremely anxious. I can't lose, I can't. I promised Jingqiu that I will definitely return. Xia Clan, it won't be long before war breaks out. I can't lose, I can't. When Dombush Ying saw Persei being tied up and dragged into the mirage after being defeated, he understood that he would only be in a worse state if he lost because he didn't have a deity armor. True meaning of star and true meaning of mirage. As long as I break through, one, I will have hope. Dombush Ying was incomparably anxious. At this moment, while he was crazily executing his extreme piercing, his mind was trying hard to recall the scene of creation of heaven and earth. He was forcefully suppressing the influence of the 6 ghosts' resentment voodoo poison in his body and thinking of ways to deduce the true meaning of star and true meaning of mirage. He had to break through. If he didn't break through, he would die. Pun. A tentacle broke through his defense and whipped Dombush Ying's body. Dombush Ying flew backwards and immediately thrusted his spear with lightning speed, piercing the tentacle that wanted to wrap around him. Ayo! That 8-tentacled monster immediately howled, and its entire body trembled. However, it quickly attacked again. Fortunately, Uncle Fu had previously used the deity-grade scrolls to enhance his defense on himself. Otherwise, under the direct attack of a deity-grade power, even if he didn't die, he would still be seriously injured. After a few more attacks, he would be finished. Star, mirage! Dongbu Shuang was about to go crazy from anxiety. In his mind there was the scene of the birth of the entire world when the Crimson Rock Mountain's owner pointed out with a finger. There were plants, flowers, birds, and beasts in that world. When he thought of that incomparably vast and thick land, Dongbu Shuiying's heart suddenly moved. Boom! The true meaning of star, which was originally on the surface of his body, suddenly condensed, and the surrounding gravity domain's power also abruptly increased. The powerful gravitational force instantly swept across all the 8 tentacled monsters surrounding him. Their bodies were originally large, and it was just that the gravity domain's power was weak before, but it still reduced their speed by 10%. But now that the gravity domain had suddenly increased, it caused the surrounding group of 8 tentacled monsters to stop their bodies, and their speed suddenly slowed down. The true meaning of star has broken through. Dongbu Shuang was so excited that he was about to cry. At the moment of life and death, he actually broke through. The heavens don't want me to die! The heavens don't want me to die! The second watch had arrived. There was still the third watch. Chapter 329. His true meaning of star and true meaning of mirage had long reached the peak of the Stage 2 realm. After watching creation of heaven and earth, he had gained many insights and felt that he could break through at any time. However, this at any time was uncontrollable. Dongbu Shuang didn't dare to say that he could break through whenever he wanted to. The temporal temple forces the reincarnators to break through at the edge of life and death. Even though it is cruel, but under the pressure of life and death, it is indeed easier to break through. Dongbu Shuang was also rejoicing. Just now, he was in an incomparably anxious situation. In the face of death, his life instinctively burst forth with the strongest desire to survive. Even the influence of the hex poison rapidly decreased. At that time, the speed at which his brain deduced true meanings had soared. Even without the hex poison's influence, his brain's deduction speed wouldn't have been this fast. This was the state of being forced by the edge of life and death. It is easier to break through under the pressure of life and death. However, it is better to avoid such situations. Dongbu Shuang didn't like this feeling of despair. Hong! The gravity domain repelled all the 8 tentacled monsters. Every single one of their movements was repelled by the gravity, causing their speed to decrease by another 20 to 30%. Kill! The spear in Dongbu Shuiying's hand rotated. Hong! With the aura of destruction, the whirlpool of gravity on the spear became stronger. After converging into a point, it became even more natural. Its speed also increased. With a flash, the spear tip stabbed into a dark green tentacle. 1. The terrifying profound mysteries of destruction contained within this spear was immediately transmitted to the entire body. The huge 8-tentacled monster instantly turned into ashes before dissipating into nothingness. Star Meteor Annihilation. A single spear kill. Previously, Dongbu Shuang had always been pondering over his secret skill. However, he hadn't perfected it. After his true meaning of star and true meaning of extreme piercing reached the Stage 3 realm, their coordination was very smooth. Everything was very natural. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was sufficient. This attack was stronger than before, and the laws of profound mysteries were similarly higher. It could be said that among the lords of Ulan, Persei, and the Maishan master, Dongbu Shuiying's spear techniques were the most terrifying. Boom! 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 The speed of Star Meteor Annihilation was close to that of extreme piercing. The 8-tentacled monsters were even slower under the gravity. Moreover, every time the spear was released, a monster would die, and the 8 tentacles would all disappear. Naturally, Dongbu Shuiying felt much more relaxed. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The spear flew. The surrounding 8-tentacled monsters were annihilated one after another, scaring the other 8-tentacled mirage life forms into a daze. Run, run, run! The 8 tentacled mirage creatures began to flee in panic. You want to escape? At this moment, Dongbu Shui Ying's gravity domain reversed and produced a strong gravitational force that slowed down their escape speed. Persei. Dongbu Shui Ying charged straight at the 8 tentacled mirage creatures that were binding Persei. Seeing Dongbu Shui Ying chasing after them, those 8 tentacled mirage creatures were very intelligent. They immediately understood that this white-clothed human wanted to save their companion. Without hesitation, they released their tentacles, and the bound Persei was released. Those 8 tentacled mirage creatures fled in all directions. Only then did Dongbu Shui Ying stop chasing. What's going on? Persei looked at his surroundings in a daze. He had already been expelled from the mirage realm and returned to the real world. His surroundings were empty, and far away was the core vine. The lords of Ulan, who stood on the core vine, also had a look of astonishment on their faces. Whoosh! A white-clothed figure walked out of the void. It was Dongbu Shui Ying. Dongbu, it's you? Persei was slightly excited. I was lucky to have broken through at the moment of life and death. How lucky! Dongbu Shui Ying felt incomparably lucky. He felt like he had just survived a calamity. Ha ha, this is also my luck! Persei could not hide his excitement. Previously, he was in despair and thought that he was finished. This time, he had failed the mission. Even if he relied on his armor to hold on, the moment he reached the time limit set by the oath he made with the world deity, he would die even if he hid in the deepest part of the dark abyss, let alone hiding in the Crimson Rock Mountain. Dongbu Shui Ying and Persei turned their heads to look at the distant core vine. Looking at the lords of Ulan, their eyes were filled with killing intent. Ulan! Their killing intent soared. Almost both of them were finished. Not only would they have died, but the Flying Sword Villa and the Xia people behind them would also have suffered great losses. Ulan, die! Dongbu Shui Ying growled and immediately turned into a stream of light. Persei did the same. They actually didn't die. They actually didn't die. They survived the encirclement of 139 mirage creatures? The lords of Ulan could not believe the scene in front of them. Persei had been expelled from the mirage, and even Dongbu Shui Ying had walked out of the mirage. When Persei and Dongbu Shui Ying looked over with killing intent, they both rushed over. Without hesitation, the lords of Ulan flew along the long vine. They flew in the direction of the second vine leaf world. Persei couldn't fight in the mirage at all. It seems like Dongbu Shui Ying had dealt with those mirage creatures. He wasn't strong enough at all. Could he have broken through? The lords of Ulan gritted their teeth in anger. They knew that it would be difficult for the rest of them to break through. This was because they all wanted to enter the deity heart realm from the peak of the third stage. This step was like a natural chasm, and Dongbu Shui Ying was the easiest to break through among them. We didn't kill him, but he actually became stronger. The lords of Ulan was furious. Damn it. Although he was furious, he was running for his life at the fastest speed possible. Dongbu Shui Ying and Persei were still surrounded by golden threads. Although their power had been reduced, the lords of Ulan had already run far away by the time they reached the core of the long vine. Moreover, his speed was even faster than Dongbu Shui Ying and Persei. They were destined to get further and further away from each other. Forget it. We can't catch up, Persei said. This scourge must be eliminated, Dongbu Shui Ying said. Amen. If there's a chance, we must eliminate him. Otherwise, he might even plot against us. Persei nodded. But don't worry. In the vine leaf world, it will be harder for him to plot against us. When Dongbu Shui Ying thought of the later trials, he couldn't help but nod. Let's go and take a look at the lair of those 8 tentacled monsters. Dongbu Shui Ying's eyes were filled with anticipation. He pointed at the belly of a lone mountain about 1,300 kilometers away. It's there. Ha! Previously, there was only one 8-tentacled monster, but there were 2 deity weapons and a deity warrior. This time, the threat is much greater than before. There will definitely be more fortuitous encounters and treasures. Persei was also looking forward to it. but don't be anxious. Let's wait for the shackles around us to dissipate first. And then, Dongbu Shuang nodded. The golden threads were getting weaker and weaker. Dongbu Shuang and Persei's true meaning surged on the surface of their bodies, weakening it time and time again. I'll let my mirage doppelganger check. Dongbu Shuang looked in that direction. With a thought, a mirage doppelganger that looked exactly the same as Dongbu Shuang appeared at the entrance of the belly of the mountain and walked in. Hong hong hong. Some of the 8 tentacled monsters that had escaped back to their lairs saw the white-robed young man walking in again. Instantly, they fled in fright. Through the mirage, they rushed out of their lair. There were actually a total of 155 mirage creatures in this lair. Previously, when they went to chase after Dongbu Shuang, there were still some left in the lair. Now that they knew how powerful Dongbu Shuang was, they didn't want to fight anymore. Because once they did, they would be killed in one shot. The powerful life force that they were so proud of was completely useless. There are actually so many of them. Dongbu Shuang was also shocked. Counting them, there were originally more than 200 mirage creatures in this mountain. Very soon, the golden threads on his body dissipated completely. Let's go. Dongbu Shuang and Persei immediately walked over. Very soon, they arrived at the entrance of the belly of the mountain. Outside the belly of the mountain, Dongbu Shuang left behind 3 mirage lifeforms. They spread out and monitored every direction. The 2 of them walked into the belly of the mountain. The belly of the mountain was empty. It was very big, about 5 to 6 li in area. There were some plants and wild flowers growing inside. There were also some flowing streams. And in a corner of the belly of the mountain, there was a piece of crystal jade floating in midair. Dongbu Shuang and Persei's gazes fell on the floating crystal jade in the distance. I won't be going. Persei smiled. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he couldn't possibly get involved at this moment. He was already very lucky to be able to survive this time. It was impossible for him to split the treasures. Of course, if Dongbu Shuang didn't need it, and Dongbu Shuang took the initiative to give it to him, he would still be willing to accept it. Chapter 330. It was impossible for Dongbu Shuang to reject it. This was a treasure guarded by over 200 mirage creatures. Even if he did not have transcendent battle chi and could not use it, it would still be good to send it back to the Xia people. Who knows, it might even be of great use in the upcoming war. Who? Dongbu Shuang walked to a corner of the mountain and took in a deep breath. He extended his hand towards the crystal jade. Cautiously, he did not touch it directly with his palm. Instead, he used the heaven and earth energy to wrap around the crystal jade. However, suddenly, a beam of light shot out from the crystal jade and tunneled into Dongbu Shuang's forehead. This caused Dongbu Shuang to jump in fright. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Even with the deity tear scrolls on him and the green armored protector, he was unable to block this beam of light. Blood-creeping flower, the companion plant of the sky-reaching vine. It is an innate deity tear plant life form. The crystal jade contains a seed of the blood-creeping flower. As long as the crystal jade is refined and the seed is released, the seed will be able to absorb the heaven and earth energy and grow. When it is born, it will be comparable to a demigod. In 100 years, it will be able to reach the deity tier. In 1,000 years, it will be able to reach the deity tier. In 10,000 years, it will be able to reach the deity tier. In 100,000 years, it will be able to reach the peak of the deity tier. This is the perfect matured body. If you feed it with origin stones, deity crystals, flesh and corpses, it will be able to accelerate its growth. The detailed method to nurture it, the method to control it, combat proficiency. A large amount of information appeared in his mind. Dongbu Shuang's eyes shone with excitement. Countless thoughts appeared in his mind. As long as he nurtured this blood-creeping flower properly, it could allow the Xia people to have another deity tier combat power when the war broke out. Furthermore, as a deity tier plant life form, it would be much harder to deal with than ordinary deities. Its life force was much stronger. Refine. Dongbu Shuang immediately sent a strand of his soul energy into the crystal jade. Runes appeared on the surface of the crystal jade, and the crystal jade gradually turned transparent, revealing a black seed in the center. The black seed began to awaken, and green roots began to grow on its surface. There were even green leaves on the surface. These tender leaves rapidly absorbed the surrounding energy. Chi. The crystal jade rapidly shrank, and was soon devoured by the green vines on the black seed. The surrounding heaven and earth energy surged, and the green leaves on the green vine began to grow. The green leaves swayed, and the green vine continued to grow. The black seed gradually withered, and finally, it completely turned into powder. In the blink of an eye, a beautiful red flower bud began to grow on the green vine's many leaves. Be good, come here. Dongbu Shuang smiled and stretched out his right hand. The blood-creeping flower that was floating in midair instantly flew into Dongbu Shuaying's palm. It then obediently coiled around Dongbu Shuaying's wrist, shrinking rapidly like a vine's bracer. Although it had turned into a wrist guard, it was still constantly absorbing the energy of the world. This is the blood-creeping flower? Persei walked over as well, and was incomparably shocked. As expected of the almighty existence of the god realm. This is too extravagant. This treasure is a god-tier plant life form. I heard that plant life forms usually have to be refined and controlled from the seed stage. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to control them when they grow. Amen. Dongbu Shuang nodded and revealed a smile. That's right. I was only able to control this blood-creeping flower after refining that crystal jade. A blood-creeping flower. A single blood-creeping flower can be exchanged for 3 to 5 peak-stage deity slaves. Persei sighed. So expensive? Dongbu Shuang was shocked. When it matures, it will only be a peak-stage deity. It's different. This refined plant life form is absolutely loyal, and it can transform into a plant armor to protect itself. Naturally, its value is much higher than a peak-stage deity slave. Those slaves. Although they were forced to be slaves, they might seem obedient, but they might be harboring hatred in their hearts. Who knows, one day, they might even self-detonate to harm their master. This isn't impossible, Persei said. How can it be as reassuring as a plant life form? Dongbu Shuang nodded. It's a pity. Dongbu, if you didn't refine it, this crystal jade seed could be sold to the outside world, Persei said. It's not impossible to get those major powers to send an antidote for the 6 ghosts' grudge into the mortal world. It's a pity that you've already refined it. This blood-creeping flower has already begun to grow, and it will be hard for it to recognize a new master. Ah. Dongbu Shuang was speechless. Exchange for the antidote? It could be exchanged for 3 to 5 peak-stage deity slaves. Among all the ancestors of the Xia people, only 3 had reached the peak-stage deity level. Even if they sold all their treasures, they wouldn't be able to afford this seed. Crimson Rock Mountain. As a treasure left behind by a powerful existence, a single strand of hair from it would be thicker than the thighs of those deities. Forget it. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Since I've already refined it, forget it. Moreover, it would be of great help in the war between the sorcerer god and the great demon god. Even if he died from the hex poison. Before he died, he could still order the blood-creeping flower to protect the Xia people. It's good that you're able to accept it. Moreover, Dongbu, your strength is constantly improving. Who knows, with our group, you might be able to successfully pass through the 5 vine-leaf worlds of the sky-reaching vine. Persei sighed. Anyway, I'll just try my best. Dongbu Shuang said. However, it was different from before. Previously, Dongbu Shuang was prepared to risk his life. If he didn't get the antidote, he would rather die along the way. However, now that he had obtained the blood-creeping flower, Dongbu Shuang felt that if he really couldn't do it, he would crush the talisman and leave at the very last moment. Because he had to bring the blood-creeping flower out. Hoo-hoo. On the Korlong vine. Dongbu Shuang and Persei followed the Korlong vine, transforming into 2 streams of light as they flew at high speed. Oh right, Dongbua, you've been talking about the war between the sorcerer god and the great demon god. Do you know when the war will start? Percy asked. I don't know. Dongbua Shuang shook his head. However, the clone of the great demon god that our Xia people destroyed was almost perfect. Therefore, I'm guessing that they are well prepared and could start the war at any time. Xinjiu smiled. I can tell you a piece of information. Eh? Dongbua Shuang looked at him. The war should start 20 years later. Percy, I said. I don't dare to confirm the exact time, but it should start 20 years later. 20 years later? Dongbua Shuang was shocked. Why do you say so? Percy, I said. You should know that I was ordered to enter the Xia people's world by a great universe deity. Back then, I made an oath with him, stating that I must enter the Crimson Rock Mountain within 20 years of entering the Xia people's world. Moreover, that universe deity also instructed me not to delay. Once the war starts, the Crimson Rock Mountain will be completely surrounded by the sorcerer god and the great demon god. I won't have the chance to enter anymore. Since he ordered me to enter within 20 years, I estimate that the war will start 20 years later. Moreover, it's not just me. The other teams are also coming. I reckon that the universe deity, or great demon god level existence behind them have already found some information. Percy, I said. Dongbua Shuang nodded his head solemnly. The ancestors of the Xia people were only deities after all. In terms of information gathering, they could not compare to those universe deities. After all, according to Percy and the others, the difference between a deity and a universe deity was like the difference between a mortal and a transcendent. 20 years. Dongbua Shuang had many thoughts in his mind. Dongbua Shuang and Percy flew all the way. Soon, he flew along the core of the long vine to the main trunk of the sky-reaching vine and continued to fly upwards. After flying for 8 days, they finally reached the second vine leaf world. Along the way, Dongbua Shuang and Percy had been rushing, trying to catch up to the Lords of Ulan. Unexpectedly, they did not find them. The Lords of Ulan escaped pretty quickly. Percy said coldly. The second vine leaf world. I don't believe he can escape. Dongbua Shuang said. First update. Chapter 331. Let's join forces as soon as possible and eliminate him. Percy didn't hide his killing intent. The ambush from the Lords of Ulan had almost killed them both. We must eliminate him. Dongbua Ying's eyes were filled with killing intent as well. The Lords of Ulan had set up a trap in such a dangerous place like the first vine leaf world. It was clear how strong their desire for revenge was. If the Lords of Ulan had become protector disciples and left Crimson Rock Mountain alive, they wouldn't have left for the Dark Abyss so easily. They might have taken revenge on the Xia people and massacred them. Congratulations, you're still alive! The green-haired Shiwei suddenly appeared on the main branch beside them. Senior Shiwei. Dongbua Shuang and Percy bowed respectfully. This is the second vine leaf world. Shiwei looked down at the vast second vine leaf world. You should know the rules. In the second vine leaf world, there are patrolling mountain beasts in the mountains. Every transcendent will be attacked by a patrolling mountain beast. If you stay in the second vine leaf world for more than 10 days, you will be attacked by 2 patrolling mountain beasts at the same time. If you stay for more than a month, you will be attacked by 5 patrolling mountain beasts. To be able to survive the attacks of 5 patrolling mountain beasts, you won't be in danger no matter how long you stay in the second vine leaf world. Of course, killing each other between transcendents doesn't count, Shiwei explained. Understood. Dongbua Shuang and Percy nodded. They already knew the rules. The first and second vine leaf worlds will unearth your potential. Make good use of this opportunity and increase your strength. Shiwei smiled and merged into the main branch. Whoosh whoosh. Dongbua Shuang and Percy swooped down and landed at the edge of the giant vine leaf world. Dongbua, Uncle Fu has already crushed his talisman and left Crimson Rock Mountain. We can no longer use God-tier scrolls, Percy said. Facing the patrolling mountain beasts will be troublesome. Are you sure we should move together? Of course we'll go together. This way, when we meet the Lords of Ulan, we'll be more confident in killing him. Dombush Shuang said. As for the patrolling mountain beast, even though I don't have a deity tier scroll anymore, my true meaning of star has already broken through to the grade 3 realm. Thus, my gravity domain is effective against it. Persei revealed a happy expression. Good, this true meaning of stars is really balanced. It can be of some use in any dangerous situation. Dombush Shuang nodded. True meaning. Some are extreme, some are balanced. Mirage and extreme piercing were both extreme techniques. Just like Persei's true meaning of only me, it was also very extreme, completely improving one's body. As for the true meaning of star, it was very balanced. First of all, its defense was strong, and so was its strength. Of course, pure strength wasn't that effective when attacking. The true meaning of star could only be considered average in terms of offense. Moreover, it also had a domain-type gravity domain. Gravity was a very effective large-scale domain. The greater the mass, the better the effect of the gravity domain. With this true meaning of star, it was indeed very comprehensive. This was especially so for the true meaning of star and extreme piercing, which combined to form the star meteor annihilation. This secret skill was truly perfect. It possessed both extreme strength and terrifying destructive profound mysteries. The second vine leaf world was a vast mountain range that stretched on endlessly. Dombush Shuang and Persei arrived at the entrance of a huge canyon. To enter the second vine leaf world, they had to follow this canyon until they reached the end. The Maishan Master's team is the fastest. They are 1 day ahead of us, Persei said. As for Yulan, he shouldn't be much faster than us. We might even be able to catch up to him. Chase. Dombush Shuang nodded. So. The two of them immediately followed the canyon. More than 2 hours after they entered the canyon, a figure walked out from a cave in a distant mountain. It was a barefooted, black-skinned youth wrapped in white cloth. He looked at the entrance of the canyon from afar, his eyes filled with mockery and coldness. 2 idiots. They still want to chase after me, but they don't know that I'm right behind them. No matter how hard you chase, you won't be able to catch up to me. Only then did the Lords of Ulan slowly walk towards the canyon. Of course, he also released his time deceleration domain to check on the enemy. This canyon ran through the entire mountain range, all the way to the end. It was about 9 million kilometers long. Hoo! Dombush Shuang and Persei were extremely fast. Along the way, they saw various patterns on the walls of the canyon. Sometimes, they couldn't help but stop to take a look. However, they still managed to cover 1 million kilometers in just an hour. On the grassy field in front of the cliff, the Maishan Master, the white-robed girl, and the black-robed man were looking at the cliff. They were comprehending and pondering. There were some sword art patterns on the cliff. Dombush Shuang, Persei, you guys are really fast. The Maishan Master turned to look at Dombush Shuang and the others. He took a step forward and walked out of the grassy field where they were comprehending. That was because the flow of time in that grassy field was very fast. In this second vine leaf world, there were many places where the flow of time was very fast. This way, the Transcendents could use the flow of time to have more time to slowly comprehend. For example, after 10 days, they would be attacked by 2 patrolling mountain beasts. If the flow of time was 10 times faster, 10 days would be equivalent to 100 days. After all, staying for more than 10 days was the normal time in the outside world. The Maishan Master laughed. I arrived at the second vine leaf world a day earlier than you guys. How did you catch up so quickly? Why? There were many cliffs on the way, and there were many seniors' profound mysteries, fist arts, spear arts, sword arts, saber arts, and so on. Didn't you guys comprehend them? There's no rush. Persei laughed. Let's chase after the Lords of Ulan and kill Yulan first. Then, we can slowly comprehend them. Right, Maishan Master, did you see the Lords of Ulan? Dombush Shuang asked. The Maishan Master shook his head. I didn't see him. He definitely isn't here. If he was here, I would have definitely discovered him. Dombush Shuang and Persei looked at each other. He's behind us, Dombush Shuang said. The lords of Ulan must know that we are chasing after him. Therefore, when he arrived at the second vine leaf world, he wasn't in a hurry to enter the canyon. Instead, he should be hiding somewhere in the mountains. He probably saw us enter the canyon before entering. What do we do now? Persei asked. Do we return and kill him? There's no rush. Dombush Shuang shook his head. Who knows how long the lords of Ulan have been hiding in the mountains? He will eventually enter the canyon. We just need to slowly cultivate and wait for him to enter the trap. Persei nodded and laughed. Yes. I saw a few interesting places just now, but I didn't stop to cultivate. Let's go. Let's go back and take a look. Dombush Shuang was also itching to go. Thanks. We'll be leaving first. Dombush Shuang and Persei immediately bid farewell to the Maishan master. The two turned and left. They talked about the cliff carvings they had seen before. Soon, they chose a place that both of them were interested in and stopped after walking for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. They lifted their heads to look at the cliff. On the cliff, there was a pattern made of countless lines. It looked like a massive crater of a volcano. Countless spheres were flying out of the crater, each of which carried a destructive aura. The crater of the volcano was so deep that they couldn't see the bottom. It seemed to contain the source of all destruction. Shuang and Qinjiu immediately searched for the region in front of the cliff where the flow of time was the fastest. That region was next to a stream, where the flow of time was estimated to be 9 times that of normal. Kid, just absorb as much as you want. Dombush Shuang looked at the blood-creeping flower wristband on his wrist. Apparently, the wristband was absorbing heaven and earth energy. Dombush Shuang and Persei calmed down and lifted their heads to watch. Of course, Dombush Shuang also sent a part of his consciousness to monitor the surroundings with his mirage. Persei also used the true meaning of 8 dragons to check the surrounding 10,000 miles. If the lords of Ulan came, they could attack them. This feeling of destruction. Dombush Shuang looked at the crater of the volcano on the cliff. It was as though he could feel the aura of the extreme point that represented the beginning of everything. He couldn't help but feel it carefully. Occasionally, he would move his fingers to test out his thoughts. The second update arrived. Chapter 332. About 15,000 kilometers into the canyon. The black-skinned teenager, the lords of Ulan, had his arms crossed in front of his chest. He was frowning as he looked at the diagram on the cliff in front of him. It was a combination of sword and blade techniques. It should have been left behind by a senior from the deity world. Space-time. The lords of Ulan narrowed his eyes. The sword represents time, while the blade represents space. To be able to unleash the power of space-time, even though it didn't fuse time and space into a complete temporal deity heart. But to be able to fuse 2 laws of profound mysteries so exquisitely is quite amazing. The eyes of the lords of Ulan were filled with desire. He could tell that this should be a secret skill created by a deity who had grasped hold of both the time and space deity hearts. Naturally, there would only be one true deity heart. But just like transcendence, they could comprehend many true meanings. Deities could also raise their true meanings to the deity heart realm. But in the end, they could only choose one true deity heart. For example, Dombush Shuang could raise his extreme piercing, star, and mirage to the deity heart realm. But to condense a true deity heart, he could only choose one. The moment he condensed a true deity heart, he would have to follow this path. The evolution of the deity heart would also follow this path. Of my 2 grade 2 true meanings, one is a profound mystery related to time, while the other is mixed with profound mystery related to space. If I could comprehend 1 or 2, I might be able to create a secret skill of my own. The eyes of the lords of Ulan were filled with desire. A secret skill. Dombush Ying's combat power was originally not that ridiculous. But after creating a secret skill, it allowed his combat power to explosively increase. If I can create a secret skill, there will be hope for me to pass through the sky-reaching vine. The lords of Ulan immediately began to carefully observe. Occasionally, they would close their eyes and rapidly deduce and perfect it in their minds. At another location, Dongwu Shuang and Persei stood by the riverbank, looking at the volcano erupting spheres on the cliff. A day had passed in the outside world, and the two were immersed in it. For those transcendents who had just started cultivating, they were usually forbidden from looking at the blade and spear techniques created by other transcendents. This was because they were worried that they would take a wrong path. However, after grasping the true meaning, one would naturally have their own path. Nothing will go wrong. However, there was always an exception. Even deities, or even world deity existences, would have doubts and doubts about their own cultivation path. In the end, their true deity hearts would collapse and they would die. Of course, those were extremely rare, so it was best to choose a path that was close to one's own if one wanted to comprehend the experiences of their predecessors. So that's how it is. These experts of the deity world have walked much further than us transcendents in the field of laws and profound mysteries. The more Shuang comprehended, the more he discovered things that made him sigh in admiration. His understanding of the extreme piercing deepened, and he couldn't help but wave his fingers. His fingers were like a spear, displaying the technique again and again. On the other side of the cliff behind Dongwu Shuang and Persei, two gigantic creatures suddenly appeared. Both of them looked like they were made from metal and stone. They were about 10 meters long, with 4 hooves and fangs. Its claws were strong and powerful. Who? The two of them suddenly rushed out, turning into 2 gusts of wind, terrifyingly fast. Be careful! Dongwu Shuang and Persei were constantly sensing their surroundings. Naturally, they were able to sense the 2 beasts at the first moment. However, they were still in a rush. So fast. I'm afraid they are moving at least 2,000 kilometers per second. Shuang was startled by their speed. Since they were pouncing over from the cliff behind him, the distance was too close. Shuang first released his gravity domain, causing the surging gravitational force to act on the 2 beasts that were more than 10 meters long and seemed to be cast from metal and stone, causing their speed to sharply decrease. However, they were still able to move at a speed of 1,500 to 1,500 kilometers per second. Dongwu Shuang disappeared and directly entered the mirage. Too fast! Persei immediately turned around and revealed his 8 arms. Hong! One of the beasts did not hesitate, and clashed directly with Persei. The other beast that was originally charging towards Dongwu Shuang took a glance. Its gaze seemed to be able to see through the mirage and see Dongwu Shuang. However, it only changed its direction slightly and directly charged towards Persei. This was because once it entered the mirage, its strength would be affected. Thus, it would be better to work together and kill one of them first. This was also the reason why Dongwu Shuang and Persei were in danger together. These patrolling mountain beasts would work together to deal with one of them first. Pun. After colliding with the first beast, Qinjiu was sent flying. He turned into a beam of light and slammed into the cliff behind him, which was engraved with the crater of the volcano. Amidst the rumbling sound, the invisible barrier on the cliff blocked Qinjiu's attack. Qinjiu's entire body trembled, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Dongwu, help me! Persei immediately shouted. He has a deity armor and a body that cultivates the true meaning of only me. Yet he was hit to the point where he vomited blood. Dongwu Shuang was shocked within the mirage. He did not hesitate, and immediately flew at high speed to intercept one of the patrolling mountain beasts. The second vine leaf world, there was only one type of danger, the patrolling mountain beasts. If one did not stay inside for more than 10 days, a transcendent would only be attacked by one patrolling mountain beast. As long as one won, the second vine leaf world would be considered to have been cleared. It sounded simple, but it was precisely because one only needed to deal with the patrolling mountain beasts. These patrolling mountain beasts were exceptionally terrifying. Only Persei, who had the deity armor, dared to face them head-on. If Dongwu Shuang knew about this, he would have long been frightened into hiding in the mirage. This was because if Dongwu Shuang were to face them head-on, he would probably die in a single exchange even with the true meaning of star and the green armored protector. After all, no matter how powerful the green armored protector was, it could not compare to the deity armor. In fact, it was far from it. No matter how powerful the true meaning of star was, it could not compare to the true meaning of only me, which completely cultivated the body. If even Persei vomited blood, how could Dongbua Shuang still be alive? Persei, your body is strong. Try to resist more. Dongbua Shuang transmitted to him. He could tell that Persei's body had not been destroyed yet. You rascal! Persei leaned against the cliff, his 8 arms wrapped around him as he stared at the 2 patrolling mountain beasts. Come on, come on! Roar! Roar! The 2 patrolling mountain beasts roared and once again transformed into a gust of wind as they charged forward. This time, Persei did not dare to face them head-on. Instead, he used his exquisite battle techniques to divert as much force as he could and endure for as long as possible. At the same time, he transmitted, Dongbua, I will draw the attention of the 2 of them. I will leave the offense to you. All right. Hua. A spear suddenly pierced out from the void, bringing with it the destructive aura of star meteor annihilation. However, that patrolling mountain beast was also able to see through the mirage. It swung its long tail and clashed directly with Dongbua Shuiying's spear. This patrolling mountain beast truly has the strength of a sacred mountain. Dongbua Shuiying saw that after the tail clashed with his spear, it was actually able to easily divert the force of the attack. How powerful was the star meteor annihilation? It was actually able to divert the force of the attack just like that. And this is just a tail whip. If it was a frontal attack, its might would probably be on another level. Roar! Although it managed to block the attack, the patrolling mountain beast still felt the pain. It turned to look at Dongbua Shuiying in the mirage and let out a low roar. The other patrolling mountain beast also stopped attacking Persei. The 2 patrolling mountain beasts exchanged glances. Hoo! They leaped into the mirage at the same time. Both of them leaped into the mirage. Within the mirage, the 2 patrolling mountain beasts' every move was hindered. However, they were still too powerful. They actually managed to reach the mirage. Dongbua Shuiying immediately released his gravity domain and tried his best to stop them. He couldn't help but be on high alert. Dongbua, can you hold on? If you can't, return to the real world. I'll help you. Persei transmitted his voice to him. I'll give it a try first. There are only 2 patrolling mountain beasts. In 10 days, there will be 4 of them. In the end, there will be 10 of them. After dealing with 10 of them, we can cultivate here for a long time. Dongbua Shuiying wielded his spear and looked at the 2 patrolling mountain beasts cautiously. The 2 patrolling mountain beasts were also staring at Dongbua Shuiying. They had discovered that among the 2 transcendents, the one hiding in the mirage posed the greatest threat to them. That was why they came to kill him first. You want to deal with 4 of them? And 10 of them? Are you crazy? I won't go crazy with you. Persei transmitted his voice to him. It's time for the 3rd break. I'll definitely finish the 5th break today. Let's wait and see tomorrow morning. Chapter 333. Within the mirage, the 2 patrolling mountain beasts stood in the air as they stared at Dongbua Shuiying. Dongbua Shuiying held a spear in his hand as he waited cautiously. He knew that his strength had increased by quite a bit. Furthermore, he was in the mirage, so he should be able to hold his ground against the 2 patrolling mountain beasts. This was also a good opportunity to train his spear arts. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 patrolling mountain beasts transformed into gusts of wind as they charged at Dongbua Shuiying with terrifying speed. Even with the mirage and gravity domain hindering them, the 2 patrolling mountain beasts were still able to reach a speed of 1,300 to 400 kilometers per second. Although they were still faster than him, at least they were not as fast as 2,000 kilometers per second, which made it hard for him to react. Wang, wang, wang! Dongbua Shuiying did not fight them head-on. Instead, every time the patrolling mountain beast charged at him, he would immediately dodge. Their agility was indeed a weakness of the patrolling mountain beasts. Previously, Persei had only managed to hold his ground because he had taken advantage of the patrolling mountain beast's weakness. His spear spun and stabbed out again and again, carrying with it the destructive aura of star meteor annihilation. Every spear strike would either pierce the patrolling mountain beast's abdomen or claws. The two sides continued to fight. The two patrolling mountain beasts coordinated with each other as they charged at Dongbu Shuang again and again. Their tails lashed out in a strange manner as well. Dongbu Shuang relied on his exquisite spear arts to hold on. His spear arts became increasingly ferocious, and his secret technique, star meteor annihilation, was slowly being perfected as he gained experience from actual combat. The fight continued for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. One of the two patrolling mountain beasts that had transformed into gusts of wind suddenly disintegrated into nothingness as it flew forward. The other patrolling mountain beast fought with Dongbu Shuang for another 10 rounds before it similarly dissipated. That felt good. Dongbu Shuang walked out of the mirage and returned to the real world. We won? Persei asked. It was still very tiring. Dongbu Shuang chuckled. Fortunately, the patrolling mountain beasts aren't real life forms. As long as they receive a certain amount of damage, they will naturally disperse. The patrolling mountain beasts were a test set by the master of Crimson Rock Mountain, formed by the formation. It was just like the black armored guards formed by the Black Wind Deity Palace's arrays. The patrolling mountain beast had also been formed, just that it was more powerful. How about it? Are you still planning to deal with 4 of them? Persei asked. In the mirage, it's hard for me to deal with 2 beasts. I should be able to deal with 3 patrolling mountain beasts, but I can't deal with 4. Dongbu Shuang said. However, in the real world, without the mirage's obstruction, the patrolling mountain beasts would be even stronger. I'm having a hard time dealing with 2 patrolling mountain beasts. With the help of your gravity domain, I won't have any problems dealing with 2 patrolling mountain beasts. I can even deal with 3. Persei said. If you and I work together, we should be able to resist 4 of them. 10 definitely won't work. Dongbu Shuang nodded his head. We cannot stay in the Grand Canyon for more than a month. Persei said. We've already stayed here for more than a day. Let's go to other places to take a look. There are many traces of Deity World seniors on the cliff walls of the Grand Canyon. At most, they could not stay for more than a month. Dongbu Shuang and the others had to keep track of the time. The Lords of Ulan was the same. With the true meaning of time deceleration, he could deal with 1 patrolling mountain beast without any problems. With the help of the deity grade scroll, he could deal with 2. However, he definitely could not deal with 5. Thus, he also had to pass through the Grand Canyon within a month. He was also comprehending and cultivating in various places, gradually advancing. On the 8th day in the Grand Canyon, Maishan Master, where are your companions? Dongbu Shuang and Persei met the Maishan Master again. The Maishan Master, who was sitting cross-legged on a huge rock, shook his head and said, Shan Xian and Yan Qing have already crushed their talismans and left. I thought that I could protect them against the 3 patrolling mountain beasts. However, the patrolling mountain beasts are too fast, and their tales are too strange and unpredictable. I really could not protect them. The 2 of them could only crush their talismans and leave. You still want to protect them against 3 patrolling mountain beasts? I'm impressed. Persei teased. Speaking of which, the only ones left in Crimson Rock Mountain are me, Dongbu, you, Ken Wang, and the Lords of Ulan. The Maishan Master nodded. Only Wu Ma Hai died in the first Vine Leaf world. The rest of us are still alive. However, the first and second Vine Leaf worlds are meant to unearth the potential of transcendence. It's not too dangerous. From the 3rd Vine Leaf world onwards, it's getting more and more dangerous. Dongbu Shuang sighed inwardly. There were indeed fewer and fewer transcendents in Crimson Rock Mountain. Now there were only 5 left. Furthermore, he and Persei wanted to kill Yulan. Once they succeeded, there would only be 4 left. The 3rd Vine Leaf world, the 4th Vine Leaf world, the 5th Vine Leaf world. At that time, how many would be able to reach the fifth vine leaf world? How many would be able to pass through the entire sky-reaching vine and reach a higher dimension? Or perhaps, not a single one? Let's go. Dombush, Ying, and Persei continued forward. Whenever they encountered a cliff wall that could help them, they would stop for a short while. Only when they encountered something that could help both of them would they stop for a longer period of time. On the 11th day in the Great Canyon. Dombush, Ying, and Persei looked at the cliff wall in front of them in shock. The top of the cliff wall was completely white. Below the cliff wall, there was only darkness. In the middle of the cliff wall, there was a saber mark. Dombush, Ying looked at the huge saber mark in the middle of the cliff wall. He could even imagine that, a long time ago, an unimaginably powerful existence had casually pulled out a saber from its sheath and slashed horizontally, leaving such a saber mark on the cliff wall. Once the saber mark appeared, the cliff itself would naturally change. Extreme piercing? This saber strike contains all the rules I can imagine. This saber strike contains all the power of all things in the world. It has already turned into an extreme point. Stars? With one strike, heaven and earth are born. Compared to heaven and earth, the stars are simply insignificant. Mirage? How can the mirage compare to this complete world? Dombush, Ying was completely shocked. In his opinion, this saber strike was even comparable to the feeling he got when he looked at the Genesis splitter imprint. Of course, that was when he looked at the imprint, so the feeling was even more intense. In front of him, there was only a saber mark. Beside him, Persei was also completely infatuated. This was too incredible. This kind of saber technique was simply unimaginable. Without hesitation, the two of them chose the area where the time flow was the fastest. The time flow was at least 15 times faster than normal. Persei sat on the grass, while Dombush, Ying stood beside him. He could not help but take out his stellar fire cloud spear and practice from time to time. The two of them were infatuated. In their opinion, the saber mark in front of them was much more profound than the carvings on the cliff wall. In the second vine leaf world, there was a chain of mountains. At the peak of the mountains, there was an old man with white hair and a youthful face. His body was rather thin, and his white hair fluttered in the wind. His face was as red as a baby's. His eyes were very bright. He looked down and saw the infatuated Dombush, Ying, and Persei. Persei sat cross-legged and muttered subconsciously. Dombush, Ying wielded his spear and performed again and again. These two little fellows. The old man with white hair shook his head. They are practically dancing with joy when they see this saber technique. This saber technique must have been left behind by Ming. It's a pity that he spread too much faith and became bound by it. What a pity, what a pity. Crimson Rock Mountain used to be so lively. Now it's empty. All of them have disappeared. The old man with white hair and a youthful face sat on the peak of the mountain. A green wine gourd appeared in his hand. He took a sip and looked into the distance, seemingly in a daze. Chapter 334. In front of the blade scars on the cliff. All profound mysteries can be attributed to this blade. This blade is the heaven and earth. Isn't this body of mine a complete heaven and earth? My true meaning of 8 dragons can also become one. Persei muttered to himself. His mind was rapidly deducing. Dombush, Ying stood there, practicing his spear arts. Suddenly, 9 mirage doppelgangers appeared beside him. Each of them held a condensed spear and practiced their spear arts. Some of their spear arts contained a terrifying destructive intent. Some were as heavy as the stars or the earth. Some were erratic and strange, even producing many illusions. One blade to separate heaven and earth. One is heaven, one is earth. One blade to separate yin and yang. If there is yin, then there is yang. One blade to separate reality and illusion. There is reality and illusion. Dombush, Ying muttered to himself. His spear arts became increasingly illusory. Even his entire body became somewhat illusory and transparent. The 9 mirage doppelgangers walked towards Dongwu Shui Ying's main body. The main body and the doppelgangers clashed. The doppelgangers disappeared. The main body became increasingly illusory and transparent. Soon, the 9 mirage doppelgangers disappeared. Reality is also illusory. Illusory is also reality. Dongwu Shui smiled. His nearly transparent body disappeared completely. Within the mirage. Dongwu Shui stood within the mirage. Suddenly, his entire body dispersed. From where Dongwu Shui stood, there was a radius of 50,000 kilometers around him. At this moment, Dongwu Shui could clearly feel this huge mirage. This was because his body had turned into particles and had become one with the mirage. He was the mirage, and the mirage was him. At the very least, the mirage within a radius of 50,000 kilometers was him. I am the mirage, and the mirage is me. Is this the mirage body? Or is this the so-called illusory body? Dongwu Shui was still thinking. When his true meaning of star reached the stage 3 realm, he should have been able to cultivate the star immortal body. But the principle of the star immortal body was to absorb the energy of heaven and earth, or transcendent Do-Chi, and strengthen every part of the body according to the profound laws of the true meaning of star. However, his body was constantly being tortured by the voodoo poison. There was no transcendent Do-Chi in his body, and the power of heaven and earth was all used to recover the damage to his body. Furthermore, the voodoo poison had seeped into every single particle and could not be strengthened at all. The star immortal body had a strong defense and tyrannical strength. Perhaps it would be weaker than the Only Me body, but it should be comparable to General Ku Meng's demonic body. Unfortunately, Dongwu Shui was unable to cultivate. The body of nothingness was different. It had disintegrated its entire body and fused with the ethereal extent. It didn't matter if the voodoo poison permeated his body. This is what you call an undying body. Dongwu Shui sighed. Ordinary undying bodies rely on life force. As long as one's life force is strong enough, they would be able to recover. As for the nihility body, it relied on the laws of profound mysteries to form an undying body. In order to attack me, my body would have to be scattered throughout the ethereal extent. Only by attacking the entire ethereal extent would it be equivalent to attacking me. As the true meaning of mirage grew stronger, Dongwu Shui Ying's control over the ethereal extent would continue to expand. At that time, it would be even more difficult to kill him. Even if it was a deity, a weaker deity wouldn't be able to do anything to me. Dongwu Shui sighed. The true meaning of mirage, the attack was ridiculously weak, but in exchange, it gave him a terrifying survivability. The nihility body was slowly displaying its power. It could be said that after obtaining the nihility body, Dongwu Shui Ying's survivability had skyrocketed. After his entire body had fused with the nihility body, it would be extremely difficult for any enemy to kill him. Furthermore, he could even counterattack. It could even be said that the nihility body and the Only Me body represented two different directions. One was nothingness, while the other was reality. With the Only Me body, one would have an extremely powerful defense, strength, speed, vitality, and many other aspects. Naturally, it would be extremely powerful in close combat. Coupled with the true meaning of 8 dragons, it would be Persei. Coupled with the true meaning of space, it would be the Maitian Master. Both of them were extremely adaptable when faced with difficult situations. Previously, when they were facing that huge group of 8 tentacled monsters, Persei had only suffered once. However, those monsters were only able to trap him and not kill him. Originally, they had been separated for 100,000 kilometers, but now, they instantly became one. The white-robed Dongwu Shui appeared. He then walked out of the ethereal extent. Dongwu. At this moment, Persei, who was in the midst of comprehending, stopped as well. He looked at Dongwu Shui with some doubt. Just now, there seemed to be a unique undulation. Oh? Dongwu Shui laughed. There was indeed an undulation, be careful, it's the patrolling mountain beasts. Dongwu Shui even had his suspicions. Was there someone controlling the patrolling mountain beasts in the dark? How could there be such a coincidence? He had just broken through, and the patrolling mountain beasts were attacking? Was it Senior Shiwei controlling it? Or was it someone else? For patrolling mountain beasts. Donghua, hurry up and get close to me. Let's work together. Persei immediately became serious as he conjured 8 arms. Each of his arms expanded to 7 to 8 meters in length as they revolved around him. Clearly, he wanted to help defend against the attacks. Shuang, on the other hand, was attacking the fishes that escaped the net. The cooperation between the two of them was rather perfect. But Donghua Shuang turned and looked at the 4 gigantic patrolling mountain beasts in the distance. The patrolling mountain beasts were still roaring as they transformed into a gust of wind and charged over. Their speed was indeed very fast. Boom! The gravity domain directly enveloped the 4 patrolling mountain beasts. Following which, Donghua Shuang appeared in the surroundings. With a single glance, there were a total of 36 Donghua Shuang clones. This is? Persei was shocked. An old thief had 36 clones back then. How could Donghua Shuang have so many mirage doppelgangers? Although the strength of these mirage doppelgangers had increased tremendously, reaching the peak of the demigod level, against the patrolling mountain beasts, they were simply unable to stop them. Humph! These mirage doppelgangers began to attack the patrolling mountain beasts. The patrolling mountain beasts charged at an astonishing speed. However, one of the mirage doppelgangers at the side stabbed out with a spear that contained a destructive aura. The spear directly pierced into the claws of one of the patrolling mountain beasts, causing the beast to stumble and be sent flying. This attack was too sudden, and the power behind it was too great. Pun! A spear tripped yet another charging patrolling mountain beast. A mirage doppelganger appeared out of thin air and stabbed its spear into the abdomen of the patrolling mountain beast. The patrolling mountain beast was sent flying, but it soon stabilized itself in midair. Roar, roar, the 4 patrolling mountain beasts began to panic. They glanced at the mirage doppelgangers around them. How could each mirage doppelganger suddenly erupt with such power? The 36 mirage doppelgangers were scattered around them. Moreover, they were constantly changing. Some mirage doppelgangers dissipated. In some places, new doppelgangers appeared out of thin air. Donghua Shuang was not like an old thief. An old thief's offensive power was too weak. In fact, Donghua Shuang's offensive power was even higher than that of Persei and the Maishan master. Thus, he could casually change his position, as though he was teleporting. In fact, this sort of switching was even faster than teleportation. His true body could be everywhere in the surroundings. Although he was alone, he could easily toy with the 4 patrolling mountain beasts in the palm of his hand. Donghua Shuang's true meaning of mirage has broken through. Persei was watching from the side. There was no need for him to make a move. Reality and illusion alternated. He could attack from anywhere. This caused the threat of Donghua Shuang's destructive star meteor annihilation to skyrocket. After all, if he could not kill his opponent, no matter how powerful his attack was, it would be useless. And since Donghua Shuang was fighting at close range, it was very hard for him to dodge his attacks. The patrolling mountain beasts were hit again and again. Before long, the 4 patrolling mountain beasts completely disintegrated and dissipated. Donghua, Persei sighed. Your power has already completely surpassed a few of us. Actually, the rest of us know that you are able to create a secret skill, one that combines 2 laws of profound mysteries. Your talent is far above ours. Furthermore, you were only at the peak of the 2nd stage, so breaking through wasn't difficult. However, who would have thought that this day would come? With your 3 true meanings having broken through, combined with your secret skill, no one would be a match for you. Donghua Shuang shook his head. It's just a slight difference. In this Grand Canyon, there might be someone who can condense a grade 2 deity heart. Amen. Persei immediately nodded. He was filled with fighting spirit. Then I'll have to trouble you. When the time comes, I won't be able to deal with 10 patrolling mountain beasts. I'll deal with them. But it's just 10. I reckon that 3 or 4 of them will slip through the net. You'll have to hold them off for a while. Dombush Shuang laughed. Haha, don't worry. I might not be good at anything else, but I'm good at defending myself. Persei laughed. As long as he could deal with the 10 patrolling mountain beasts, there would be no limit to how long he could stay in the Grand Canyon. Dombush Shuang was also happy to stay here. He wanted to improve his 3 true meanings as much as possible. The more he improved, the greater his chances of clearing the sky-reaching vine. In the future, when he fought against the sorcerer god and the great demon god, he would be able to help even more. Chapter 335. Time passed day by day. Although Dombush Shuang and Persei were filled with boundless admiration towards the saber scars on the cliff, they still continued to advance along the Grand Canyon, observing the new scars on the cliff. Who knew if there would be an even higher one? A more suitable one for themselves? In the blink of an eye, it was already the 1-month deadline. Who? A golden silhouette shuttled through the Grand Canyon. Ah! This golden silhouette suddenly stopped. It was none other than the black-skinned youth, the Lords of Ulan, who was wrapped in white cloth. At this moment, he turned his head to look at the cliff beside him. On the cliff was the same saber scar that Dombush Shuang and the rest had seen before. That saber scar seemed to contain all the profound mysteries of the world. It was so shocking that it gave one the same feeling as when they saw the creation of heaven and earth. To think that there would be such a scar on the cliff! The Lords of Ulan revealed a vexed expression as he gritted his teeth. Damn it, damn it! I was afraid that Dombush Shuang and Persei would join hands to deal with me, so I stayed at the back, not daring to advance too much. Who would have thought that there would be such an inconceivable saber technique here? If I had known earlier, I would have arrived here earlier. Staying here for close to a month would have been good too. Who knows, I might be able to break through and create my own secret art, or even condense a grade 2 deity heart. I still have time. I'll stay here for another hour. The Lords of Ulan could no longer hold it in. They immediately entered the grassland, where time flowed the fastest, and began to observe and ponder over the cliff. Even though time was accelerated by 15 times here, an hour in the outside world was equivalent to slightly more than 7 hours in the grassland. It was too short. Just as he was immersed in this feeling, he was forced to stop. Because if he delayed any longer, he would not have enough time to charge out of the Grand Canyon. At that time, the ones attacking him would be the 5 patrolling mountain beasts. This Dombush Shuang and Persei have ruined my fortune. The Lords of Ulan were furious. Such a mysterious saber scar, yet he could only comprehend it for such a short period of time. He could have comprehended it for a long time. I let you escape last time. Next time, wait for a chance. The Lords of Ulan loathed Dombush Shuang and Persei more and more. They even loathed the Xia people more and more as well. These damned races of the mortal world. Wait till I become an honorary disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain and leave. I'll let you know what regret is. The Lords of Ulan glanced at the blade marks on the cliff, unwillingly. Then, they quickly transformed into a stream of light and hurried on their way. Hoo. He traveled at a speed of 500 kilometers per second, and at the same time, he used the time deceleration domain to sense his surroundings. He was also afraid of bumping into Dombush Shuang and the others. He was still confident in a one-on-one fight. 1 versus 2? That was practically courting death. In a wide canyon, Dombush Shuang and Persei were pondering over a set of sword arts on the cliff. Actually, to transcendence and deities, the sword arts, saber arts, spear arts, etc. left behind by their predecessors were nothing. What they were looking at was the laws of profound mysteries contained within. After all, compared to the complete operation of the heaven and earth, the laws of profound mysteries used by experts were more direct and clear. This blood-creeping flower. Dombush Shuang glanced at a plant with green vines, green leaves, and red flowers beside him. The blood-creeping flower was now more than 3 meters tall. Other than the main green vines, there were many other thin vines. The thin vines were also covered with green leaves and red flowers. They swayed gracefully and looked very beautiful. Although they had only been in the canyon for close to a month, the blood-creeping flower had been absorbing the heaven and earth energy for more than a year due to the acceleration of time in different places. Dongwu Shuang suddenly turned to the left and looked at the faraway end of the canyon. Persei! Dongwu Shuang shouted. What's the matter? Persei stopped. I've discovered the lords of Ulan. Dongwu Shuang's lips curled up slightly. They're rushing over at high speed. They're about 90,000 kilometers away from us. His mirage could detect a whole 50,000 kilometers. The moment the lords of Ulan entered his mirage, they were discovered. Ulan? He's finally here? Ha! Persei's eyes were filled with coldness. Just in time. His time deceleration is also able to envelop a domain, Dongwu Shuang said. It's estimated to be around 10,000 kilometers. The moment they get close, they'll discover us easily. Hence, I have to bring you into the mirage. Since you haven't grasped the true meaning of mirage, you won't be able to fight in the mirage. You can only listen to me. Haha, you're the one who saved my life. Bring me into the mirage. Persei didn't hesitate at all. Before Persei entered the Xia people's world, he had already collected information about the Xia people. Naturally, he had also collected information about Dongwu Shuang. It was precisely because he had seen Dongwu Shuang's growth that he decided to help him and bring him into the mirage. Moreover, during this period of interaction, Persei was even more certain that Dongwu Shuang was someone worth entrusting his life to. He wasn't a treacherous person. Haha, all right. The feeling of being trusted made Dongwu Shuang very happy. He immediately extended his hand and grabbed Persei's wrist. At the same time, he beckoned with his other hand. Shuaiman, come here. The swaying blood-creeping flower obediently transformed into a stream of light and flew towards Dongwu Shuang's wrist. It transformed into a vine wrist. Then, he took a step forward. Dongwu Shuang brought Persei into the mirage. Inside the ethereal extent, Persei was dragged in by Dongwu Shuang, and he looked around curiously at this world that was almost identical to the real world. However, there was a sense of repulsion from this world. If not for Dongwu Shuang, he would have been expelled from this world. How magical! Persei complimented. Without enough strength, I can't even enter the ethereal extent. Even if you bring me here, I can't fight normally. At most, he could attack in the real world and force the power of the attack into the ethereal extent. You're very mysterious now, but when you become a god, or even stronger, you'll become even more mysterious. Perhaps one day, he might be able to enter the mirage as well, Dongwu Shuang said. Even if I could enter, I wouldn't be able to fight freely like you people who have grasped the true meaning of mirage. His strength was not affected at all. In fact, he might even be able to use it better. Persei sighed. The true meaning of mirage was one of the more unpopular true meanings amongst the grade 2 true meanings. If he could grasp it, he could become a very formidable assassin. I heard that once you reach the mirage deity heart realm, you'll become even more formidable, Persei said. You won't even need to fight personally. True is also illusory, and illusory is also real, Dongwu Shuang said. I'm currently at the stage 3 realm, and can be considered to have reached the stage of true is also illusory. Only when I reach the mirage deity heart realm can I be considered to have reached the stage of illusory is also real. True is also illusory. It meant that one's body could transform into an illusory body. Illusory is also real. It could allow a mirage avatar to become completely real. It would have the same combat power as the true body. This was terrifying. At that time, the true body would not need to fight and could simply hide within the mirage. As long as that mirage true body battled, even if it died, it could instantly reform. Every single grade 2 true meaning will become very formidable once you reach the deity heart realm, Dongwu Shuang continued. For your true meaning of only me or the true meaning of 8 dragons, once you reach the deity heart realm, your combat power will undergo a qualitative change. It's a pity that this step is extremely difficult to take. Persei lightly shook his head. If the true meaning of only me could condense a deity heart, by relying on its inconceivable physique, it would be able to easily beat up any ordinary new deity. It's here, Dongbu Shuang suddenly said. And men. Persei immediately turned his attention to it. Dongbu Shuang could sense everything within a range of 50,000 kilometers, and could also see the real world. As for Persei, he could only rely on his eyes to observe the mirage. The lords of Ulan were currently flying at high speed within a vast canyon. The cliffs beside them were filled with scars, causing his heart to ache. No matter how much his heart ached, he still had to proceed carefully. And men? The lords of Ulan seemed to have sensed something and abruptly turned their heads. Beside them, two male figures walked out from the mirage. One was a sickly white-robed teenager, while the other was a green-robed middle-aged man who was emitting a savage aura. They were Dongbu Shuang and Persei. The two of them stood side by side, their gazes landing on the lords of Ulan. The two of them were not anxious at all, as they were fully confident that they could get rid of the lords of Ulan here. Why are you two? When the lords of Ulan saw Dongbu Shuang and Persei appear at the same time, they were so frightened that their hearts trembled. What was there to be afraid of? Where there's a cause, there's an effect. Everything you've done in the Xia people's world, the assassination plot you've set, all these causes, have resulted in today's effect. You, Ulan, will die in this canyon, Dongbu Shuang coldly said. Chapter 336. Dongbu Shuang's voice was cold and calm, but Ulan could feel the bone-deep murderous intent. How could this be? How could they appear in front of me without me noticing? The lords of Ulan were extremely anxious. What should they do? How could they survive? Countless thoughts flashed through their minds. The lords of Ulan calmed down and thought of a solution. They squeezed out a smile and said, "Gentlemen, why bother? The most important thing for us to do in Crimson Rock Mountain is to successfully pass the sky-reaching vine. However, you know how dangerous it is. Although the first and second vine leaf worlds are dangerous, they are more fortuitous encounters that help us discover our potential. From the third vine leaf world onwards, it will be even more difficult. I'm afraid you two know that our chances of passing the sky-reaching vine are very slim. However, I, Ulan, am the only one in Crimson Rock Mountain who can use God-grade scrolls." Dongbu Shuang and Persei both realized this problem. He, Persei, Meishan Master, and Ken Huang were all transcendent knights. Only the lords of Ulan from the Dark Abyss could use God-grade scrolls. The third Vine Leaf World's trial is very dangerous, but I can help you. I can help you use the godly grade scrolls to strengthen you. The lords of Ulan smiled, revealing their white teeth. This way, you will have a higher chance of passing the third Vine Leaf World, right? Compared to killing me, passing the sky-reaching vine is more important, right? Ulan looked at the two in front of him. Ulan felt hope and said, "In the end, I won't be able to ambush you. But if the four of you work together to threaten me, I will obediently use God-grade scrolls for you. Don't worry about this. I believe you have many God-grade scrolls that you haven't used yet. I can help you use them and strengthen you. There is no benefit in killing me. If you don't kill me, your chances of passing will increase," the lords of Ulan said. "Dongbu?" Persei looked at Dongbu Shuang and said, "Why don't we not kill him first and keep an eye on him?" "How can I keep an eye on him? We were planning to cultivate in the Grand Canyon for a year. How are you going to keep an eye on him this year? Moreover, once we go through the trial in the third Vine Leaf World, we won't be able to keep an eye on Ulan anymore." Dongbu Shuang transmitted his voice. "But he can indeed use God-tier scrolls," Persei transmitted. The lords of Ulan watched from the side. Even though he couldn't hear them, he could tell that Dongbu Shuang and Persei were having a discussion. "What you said makes sense." Dongbu Shuang looked at the lords of Ulan. The lords of Ulan forced a smile, and tried to show their friendly cooperation. "But you still have to die. Dongbu Shui Ying's voice turned ice cold. As soon as he finished speaking, the fiery red spear in his hand slashed across the sky, leaving a fiery red mark in the sky as it headed straight for the Lords of Ulan. You! The Lords of Ulan didn't expect that Dongbu Shuiying would still want to kill him even though he was the only one who could use a God-tier scroll. However, he was very decisive. Without hesitation, a God-tier scroll appeared in his hand. This was also his last God-tier scroll. Die! The eyes of the Lords of Ulan were filled with madness. A black flame appeared out of nowhere and enveloped Dongbu Shuiying. After releasing the black flame, the Lords of Ulan didn't even bother to look at the result. He immediately turned into a ray of light and tried to escape. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, numerous Dongbu Shuiying appeared beside him. Numerous Dongbu Shuiying appeared in all directions. Some of them were right beside the Lords of Ulan. Do you think you can escape? All of the Dongbu Shuiying spoke at the same time. Although the black flame swept past the original body that was charging towards him, the original body was easily turned into nothingness. This is... The Lords of Ulan looked at the 36 mirage clones beside him. Their hearts turned cold as they thought of a terrifying possibility. Fear filled their hearts. The Lords of Ulan fled even more desperately. Boom! A terrifying gravitational force appeared in the surroundings. The gravitational force acted on the bodies of the Lords of Ulan. The Lords of Ulan felt an invisible force dragging them, causing their flying speed to decrease. Die! Dongbu Shuiying appeared beside him out of nowhere, thrusting his spear towards him. Yulan immediately raised his hand to block the attack. The flow of time in the surroundings slowed down. Who? As the spear neared him, it immediately disintegrated. So this Dongbu Shuiying was just a mirage clone, a fake. Although Dongbu Shuiying could change his body, he had to be within 100 meters of him. Hence, his original body was currently chasing after him. Under the effect of the gravitational force, Dongbu Shuiying's speed was already much faster than that of the Lords of Ulan. This spear attack from the mirage clones scared the Lords of Ulan so much that their speed was greatly reduced. This allowed the original body to catch up to them. Who? Another mirage clone thrusted his spear at him with a majestic aura. Could it be another fake? Is he trying to slow me down on purpose? The Lords of Ulan only casually sent a slap over, trying not to affect their speed. Boom! The spear carried an aura of destruction as it spun. Moreover, it also carried a terrifying gravitational vortex. The Lords of Ulan's slap was actually unable to block it. His expression changed abruptly. It's real! This spear. It was even faster than the time when they exchanged blows outside the black-white deity mountain. More forceful. More bizarre. Let alone a casual slap, even if the Lords of Ulan used their full strength, it would be hard to say if they could block it. Pooh! The spear spun and pierced through the left side of the Lords of Ulan's chest. The body of the Lords of Ulan instantly split into two halves. The area around the left side of his chest instantly split apart. After being pierced by the spear, the terrifying destructive power of the spear directly destroyed a small part of his body. However, the other half of his body that had been split apart earlier actually gathered together and recovered to its original state. Your demonic body is splitting quite fast. Dongbu Shuiying's voice reverberated in the surroundings. Let's see how many times you can split. The Lords of Ulan was surrounded by a group of Dongbu Shuiying, and all of them were brandishing their spears. The Lords of Ulan couldn't tell which one was real and which one was fake. Currently, Dongbu Shuiying's mirage doppelganger had reached the pinnacle of the demigod level. It wasn't something that the Lords of Ulan could kill just by releasing the laws of profound mysteries. Dongbu Shuiying, I can help you! I can help you! The hands of the Lords of Ulan enlarged. They were like two huge shields that were trying their best to defend against the attacks coming from all directions. Who? However, the real stellar fire cloud's spear still pierced through the body of the Lords of Ulan. When the spear pierced through his body had already split into many parts. After nearly half of his body was destroyed by the spear, the remaining parts of his body immediately merged together. This body of his, it can really split and merge as he wishes. Dongbu Shuang thought to himself, it's a pity that he still has to die. Without me, none of you would be able to use the God Tier scroll. The lords of Ulan were in despair. They hurriedly transmitted their voices, causing their voices to reverberate in the surroundings. Persei, you have to stop Dongbu Shuang. This time, he truly felt the aura of death. Yulan was terrified. He regretted it. He truly regretted it. Why did he have to set up that death trap in the first vine leaf world? That's right. Back then, when he saw Dongbu Shuang and Persei facing the death trap, he had laughed in delight. However, Dongbu Shuang and Persei didn't die. Especially since Dongbu Shuang's strength had become even stronger. Now it was his turn. Why? Why do I have to provoke him? What should I do? I don't want to die yet. I can't die. Crush the talisman? No. Once I crush the talisman and give up, I will be punished by the Abyss Oath. My soul will truly be destroyed. But even if I don't crush the talisman, I will still die in the hands of Dongbu Shuang. Yulan was extremely anxious. Although they had the talisman, in reality, Persei, the Maishan master, Yulan, and the others had all sworn an oath. Since the world deity had ordered them to come down, they naturally wouldn't be given any way out. If they didn't succeed, they would die. As for their subordinates, they didn't have as many restrictions as before. But if Persei died, the mission would fail, and Uncle Fu, who was outside, would die as well. Don't kill me. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Yulan shouted. Pooh! The final spear thrust. The lords of Ulan, who was already so weak that they could no longer maintain their bodies, watched in despair as the spear pierced through their heads. Hua! Their entire bodies were instantly destroyed, completely annihilated. Dang! A pair of translucent gloves fell to the ground along with a storage wristband, producing a crisp sound as they hit the stone floor. Hearing this crisp sound, Dongbu Shuang finally revealed a smile. He had finally killed him. Dongbu. Persei walked over and sighed. It's still better to see Yulan die. As long as you don't blame me, Dongbu Shuang said. You're right. I shouldn't have thought that I would get lucky. Persei sighed. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Previously, he had convinced Persei with a single sentence. In history, was there anyone who relied on a deity-grade scroll to become an honorary disciple of Crimson Rock Mountain? None. The sky-reaching vines trial, the further one progressed, the more one would have to rely on one's true strength. Moreover, keeping Yulan alive would ultimately be a disaster. Chapter 337. Within the seemingly endless Grand Canyon, the white-robed Dongbu Shuang lifted his head and stared at the saber scar in front of him. I wonder if I'll be able to reach such a realm in this lifetime. Dongbu Shuang stared at the saber scar as he mumbled to himself. After which, his body trembled slightly. With a flip of his hand, he retrieved a black wine gourd and drank a mouthful of it. The bitter antidote instantly seeped into his heart, reducing the pain he felt. Previously, I had to drink the antidote once every hour. Now I have to drink it twice every hour. A year in the outside world has passed. But in the Grand Canyon, I've spent 18 years. Dongbu Shuang sighed. 18 years. He looked at every single saber scar in the entire Grand Canyon, carefully observing every single part of it. Of course, he still ended up in front of this saber scar. Most of his time was spent on comprehending this saber scar, comprehending the profound mysteries of the laws within. Time to go. Dongbu Shuang was very clear of the changes in his body. The 18 years of cultivation in the Grand Canyon had truly broadened his horizons. His accumulations were also incomparably deep. After all, this was a powerful existence from the deity world who intentionally created this Grand Canyon. It was all for the sake of unearthing the potential of the countless transcendents from the deity world. Who? Dongbu Shuang transformed into a beam of light as he sped along the winding Grand Canyon. After flying for 1,200,000 li, he saw a towering blood-creeping flower that was at least 1,000 meters tall. The blood-creeping flower had huge green vines and countless thin vines. The thin vines covered a radius of a few thousand meters, and there were also many beautiful red flowers. Blood-creeping flower. Dongbu Shuang spoke. Master. A youthful voice rang out as the gigantic blood-creeping flower instantly shrunk and flew towards Dongbu Shuang. Very quickly, it coiled around Dongbu Shuang's wrist, transforming into a bracelet. Master, I feel like I'm about to break through. A ripple transmitted into Dongbu Shuang's mind. Dongbu Shuang smiled. No rush, no rush. Even if you can break through, don't. Wait till we enter the Xia people's world before you break through to the deity realm. The blood-creeping flower was very obedient. When it had just been nurtured, it was still very young. But now, it could already communicate with Dongbu Shuang. In the Grand Canyon, Dongbu Shuang had chosen a place where the flow of time was the fastest for it to grow. The flow of time there was 100 times faster, and now, it was very close to breaking through to the divine tier. However, the world of the Xia people was a mortal world. If the original transcendent of this world became a deity, they would usually be favored by the world will and would only be chased away after 10,000 years. In fact, if his cultivation was high enough within 10,000 years, he might even be able to refine the entire mortal world and become the master of this world. An outsider? It was impossible to refine the world will. The world will would not obediently allow him to slowly refine it. Instead, it would resist from the very beginning. An outsider must be weaker than a deity. Only by becoming a deity in the world of the Xia people would one be able to live for 10,000 years in the Xia people's world. In front of the world will of the Xia people's world, the blood-creeping flower was not a life form of the Xia people's world. Naturally, it would be rejected. Once it became a deity, it would no longer be able to enter the Xia people's world. Carrying the blood-creeping flower, Dongbu Shuang continued forward. Soon, he found Persei, who was still immersed in his cultivation. Dongbu, you're here. Persei stood up and looked at the human carvings on the cliff in front of him. They contained the profound mysteries of the true meaning of only me. I really can't bear to leave this place. If you can't bear to leave, you can always return to the second vine leaf world and continue cultivating if you can't pass the rest of the vine leaf world. Dongbu Shuang joked. Don't curse me. I will definitely pass through the sky-reaching vine smoothly, Persei said. Haha, yes, let's pass together. Dongbu Shuang laughed. Let's go. It's time to go to the third vine leaf world. Are Ken Huang and Meishan Master still trapped in the third vine leaf world? When my battle chi doppelganger dissipated, they still hadn't passed, Persei said. Their battle chi doppelganger in the outside world had also completely dissipated. Following that, the two of them immediately transformed into a stream of light and rapidly advanced. After leaving the Grand Canyon, they continued flying along the main branch of the sky-reaching vine. After flying for 9 days, they arrived at the higher third vine leaf world. The third vine leaf world was very simple. There were only 2 arenas. On one of the arenas, there were 3 children with rosy lips and white teeth sitting cross-legged. These 3 children were all wearing undergarments, and beside each of them were 2 large hammers. On the other arena, there was a fat man wearing armor sleeping soundly. In front of the 2 arenas, the golden-robed youth Ken Huang and the Meishan Master simultaneously turned their heads to look at the sky. In the distance, Dongbu Shuang and Persei, who had just finished a simple conversation with Senior Shi Wei, were descending. You two are finally here. Ken Huang sighed. How satisfying. We've been stuck in the Grand Canyon for an entire year. You two are still trapped here? Persei looked at the 2 arenas. According to the information, the first 2 vine leaf worlds were considered fortuitous encounters with untapped potential. From the third vine leaf world onwards, it will only get harder and harder. How come the third one has already trapped you too? Is it really that difficult? You can try. The golden-robed youth Ken Huang was too lazy to explain. Dongbu Shuang also carefully looked at the two arenas in front of him. The third Vine Leaf World's test was very simple. One had to defeat all opponents in the two arenas. Once defeated, one could enter the fourth Vine Leaf World. The arena battles were so simple, but they were also a real test of one's strength. The fat hunk and those three children were all formed by arrays. The Maishan master spoke. They aren't real life forms, but their strength is forever constant. I borrowed the true meaning of space to prevent those three children from surrounding me, allowing me to barely defeat them. However, that fat hunk didn't allow me to dodge, and I had to face him head on. I'm still lacking. I've already tried both of them. Ken Wang, who was at the side, shook his head. A martial emperor can still win one arena battle, but I can't even win one. I'm so worried that my hair has turned white. Isn't your hair black? Percy teased. Look. Ken Wang pointed at his hair. Shwa, it instantly turned white. Following which, his hair returned to black. AI, it's all white. It's just that I turned black. You can't even win two arena battles, and you're still in the mood to joke around. Percy laughed. Dongbu Shuang was somewhat impressed. One had to know that they were all bound by oaths. If they failed the mission, they would undoubtedly die. Thus, they had no path of retreat. To lose two arena battles, Ken Huang could still joke around. His mentality was truly good. This is nothing. How many times have I faced death in the Temporal Temple's missions? Ken Huang laughed. If failing the mission means death, why would I die with a bitter face? Wouldn't it be better to die happily with a smile? All right. You're formidable. Percy leaped up and charged towards the fat hunk's arena. Let me try him. As he spoke, Percy revealed 8 arms. His aura surged like a rainbow, and his 8 arms faintly transformed into 8 different dragon heads as they smashed towards the fat hunk. The Maishan master immediately face-bombed. How pitiful. Ken Wang spoke as well. Pun! The fat hunk, who was originally lying on the ground, suddenly waved his palms. His palms were like palm leaf fans, and they were as fast as lightning as they clashed against 2 of the 8 incoming palms. Percy's expression immediately changed as his eyes widened. Shio! He charged forward very quickly, but he was even faster when he was sent flying backwards. He was directly sent flying out of the arena by the fat hunk's slap, landing on the vine leaf ground. The surface of the vast vine leaf trembled slightly, but it was completely undamaged. Percy stared with wide eyes. You actually dared to clash head-on with him? The Maishan master shook his head. You're asking for humiliation. How would I know if I don't try? Percy retorted. However, his expression had turned solemn. He was very clear of the Maishan master's and Ken Huang's strength. Their close combat abilities weren't too far apart, but Ken Huang couldn't even win a single match. The Maishan master had relied on the true meaning of space to prevent the 3 children from ganging up on him. He couldn't win the other match either. One must know that the Maishan master had also grasped the true meaning of only me. This was troublesome. This was only the 3rd Vine Leaf World. Dongbu Shuang was watching attentively from the side. The information was indeed true. This was truly difficult. Pun. Percy tried again, but he was once again blasted down by the fat hunk. The fat hunk's attacks seemed simple, but in reality, they were all very skillful. Percy tried 3 times consecutively, but he couldn't help but shake his head. Dongbu, among the 4 of us, you might be the only one who can pass through the 3rd Vine Leaf World. Percy looked towards Dongbu Shuang. The Maishan master and Ken Huang couldn't help but look over in shock. Percy, was he that confident in Dongbu Shuang? Chapter 338. Don't flatter me. If you put me on a pedestal, it would be very painful if I fell. Dongbu Shuang teased. However, his eyes were filled with a hint of battle intent. He was indeed not confident in the strength of that fat hunk. Don't be humble. Do you think I don't know you? Qinjiu's gaze turned towards the three children in the other arena. They were wearing undergarments, and had red lips and white teeth. He smiled and said, I had nothing to say about the previous arena, but this one should be the one I have the most confidence in. Meishan Master, Ken Huang and the rest nodded. Dongbua Shuang agreed as well. Persei had 8 arms. He was the best among them in terms of dealing with encirclement. Let me try this arena. Persei immediately leaped up and landed on the arena. The 3 adorable children who were sitting cross-legged on the arena opened their eyes at the same time. They looked at Persei with cold eyes. What a cold child! Persei instantly manifested 8 arms. His arms were thick and powerful. Gray metal could be seen on his arms. A terrifying aura started to spread out. His 8 arms seemed to have 8 different dragon heads roaring as they stared at the 3 children. These children looked adorable. However, they were actually formed from the laws of profound mysteries. One could not be careless. Even Ken Huang was defeated by these 3 children. Go! One of the children shouted coldly. So. The 3 children each wielded a huge hammer. In an instant, they turned into phantoms and pounced over. So fast. Shuang, who was watching the battle from below, was startled. He was watching the battle for the sake of the upcoming battle. Even though it was recorded in the intelligence reports, it was still incomparable to watching it with his own eyes. The moment he saw it, he was startled. The speed of these 3 children was definitely faster than the 4 of them. They were like the wind and their figures were somewhat illusory. On the arena, Persei did not panic. His 8 palms enlarged like huge palm leaf fans. His palms would occasionally turn into fists, occasionally into claws. Time becomes the finger. There were all kinds of attacks. Some were soft, some were fierce, and some were mysterious. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 children had completely turned into the wind, their figures illusory. The 6 sledgehammers coordinated perfectly with each other, taking turns to smash down. It was like a windmill, but also like an incomparably precise machine. The sledgehammers smashed down one after another, and their coordination was exquisite, making it hard for one to breathe. Amazing! Seeing this, Shui Ying's expression couldn't help but change. These 3 children's speed is already extremely fast. When they work together, when the 6 hammers work together, their combined attack speed is so fast that no one can react. No wonder the Meishan Master, who is known as the martial monarch, had to use the true meaning of space to prevent them from surrounding him and barely win. Ken Huang has the true meaning of wave world, which is enough to restrict and affect the 3 children. His true meaning of sword arts is profound and formidable in close combat, but he still lost. When Dongbua Shuang saw this, he knew that Ken Huang's defeat was not unjust. In the real world, he would let them besiege him. He would have lost as well. His spear arts might be powerful, but he was still unable to defeat 3 opponents at the same time. Having 8 arms is indeed different. Dongbua Shuang revealed a smile. The opponents had 6 sledgehammers. Persei, on the other hand, had 8 arms. His defense was watertight. Although the opponents were fast, Persei's true meaning of only me combined with the true meaning of 8 dragons was superior to the Meishan Master and Ken Huang in close combat. This Persei is truly formidable. What I said earlier wasn't wrong. Out of all of us, he is probably the only one who dares to face these 3 children head-on. The Meishan Master sighed. To be able to cultivate the true meaning of only me to the point of giving birth to 8 arms, and to be able to unleash perfect strength with each arm. I really have to admire this Persei. Even though he cultivated the true meaning of only me, he did not have an extra arm or an extra pair of wings. This was because his innate body was already perfect. To have additional limbs on top of this foundation would normally be very uncoordinated, and one's strength might even decrease instead of increasing. Thus, to be able to produce 8 arms, and to be able to unleash perfect strength with each arm, was already an incredible feat. Ha! Qinjiu suddenly roared, his face ferocious. He began to attack even more ferociously. Occasionally, He would even use his body to withstand 1 or 2 sledgehammer's attacks in order to attack his opponents with all his might. Pum pum pum. Finally, one of the children retreated explosively, and his body completely dissipated. Following the defeat of one child, the other 2 children were quickly defeated one after the other, and both of them disappeared. Hoo. On the stage, Persei's expression was somewhat pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Just now, his body had withstood over 10 sledgehammers. Fortunately, he had the deity armor and his powerful true meaning of only me body, which allowed him to withstand the blows. How is it? Persei looked below the stage, feeling rather pleased. Don't be complacent. Ken Wang sneered. You are so complacent after just one victory. If you are capable enough to defeat that fat hunk, then I will admire you. Persei immediately had a bitter expression. Let me try again. Persei felt that he had just won, and his momentum was at its peak. Immediately, he gritted his teeth and transformed into a stream of light, rushing towards the stage where the fat hunk was. Pun! The fat hunk sent another slap over. This time, Persei did not dare to face it head-on. Instead, he dodged and dodged. Pun pun pun! The fat hunk's palm was as fast as lightning, enveloping Persei with each slap. Persei could dodge once, but he could not dodge more than 10 times. Very soon, he was directly slapped on his arm, which then pressed down on his arm, and directly crushed his body. Persei stared, and his entire body was sent flying out of the stage. Sigh, I lost even faster this time, Persei said unwillingly. You just won. You were too impatient. The Maishan master shook his head. When fighting with him, you cannot be impatient. You have to be patient, and you cannot face him head-on. If you face him head-on, we will lose. I know. Persei was very troubled. This time, they came in. All of them were under a lot of pressure. They had all signed oaths, but now they were all trapped here. Shinjo could sense that even though he had been able to defeat the 3 children with his 8 arms, he was no match for this fat giant. Moreover, the gaps seemed to be quite large. I lost in 2 stages. Persei and Wu Huang, you both won the battle with the 3 children. Ken Huang smiled. It seems that we still have to study hard. If our strength does not increase greatly, I am afraid it will be difficult to pass the 3rd vine leaf world, let alone the 4th and 5th vine leaf worlds. The Maishan master and Persei nodded. Dongbui Shuang. The Maishan master looked at Dongbui Shuang, who was deep in thought. There is no need to think too much. Let's go and try first. If we lose, we can fight again. Dongbui will not lose so easily, Persei said. Persei, you are very confident in Dongbui Shuang. Ken Huang was surprised. Although you won against the 3 children, you relied on your 8 arms. Wu Huang had a harder time winning than you. Even against the 3 children, which were relatively easy, Dongbui Shuang would have a hard time winning, let alone the fat hunk at the end. Watch and you will know, Persei said. I will go and try, Dongbui Shuang said. He watched from the side for a while and understood the 2 stages. He had some ideas in his mind. Of course, whether he would succeed or not, he would only know after the battle. Who? Dongbui Shuang leaped into the air and landed on the stage where the 3 children were. Although the 3 children from before had been destroyed by Chenjiu's attack, 3 new children had formed on the arena. They looked exactly the same as before, all of them very adorable. However, all of them were seated cross-legged with their eyes closed, and a pair of hammers were placed beside them. When Dongbui Shuang landed on the stage, the 3 children opened their eyes and looked at Dongbui Shuang. Attack! The 3 children picked up the 2 hammers beside them and turned into afterimages. Their speed was frightening as they charged towards Bei Feng. Dongbui Shuang stood there calmly, allowing the 3 children to attack him together. Who? The fiery red spear in his hand suddenly rose up, and the spear was like a rotating arc, carrying with it the terrifying destructive aura of the star meteor annihilation. In an instant, a terrifying vortex was formed, attracting the 3 children, and the spear was already thrusting forward. Chapter 339. The coordination between the 6 hammers was incomparably exquisite, as though they were an intricate machine. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Only the 8-armed Persei would be able to deal with such a ferocious attack. Even Dongwu Shuang would not be able to deal with the 6 hammers with just a single spear. Boom! Dongwu Shuang did not dodge. Instead, he stabbed out with his spear. When the spear pierced out, the surrounding stars swelled and turned into dazzling flames, then rapidly shrank and collapsed into an extremely tiny dot. Although this scene was a little blurry, it was still clearly visible to the naked eye. When the spear stabbed out, the speed of the spear caused the spectators to reveal expressions of shock. Too fast. The current star meteor annihilation had already caused the Maishan Master, Persei, and Ken Huang to be extremely shocked. Such a spear, the speed was peerlessly fast. Furthermore, the spear stabbed out in an arc, bringing with it an extremely strong gravitational force. Pooh! One of the hammers closest to it tried its best to block the attack. However, under the influence of the gravitational force, as well as the spinning trajectory of the spear, it was ultimately unable to block the attack. The spear scraped past the sides of the hammers, before piercing into a child. That child instantly dissipated into nothingness. Boom, boom, boom! The other 4 hammers had already arrived. Dongwu Shuiying's body abruptly merged into the nothingness, entering the mirage. Too fast! This spear art is too fast! Ken Huang exclaimed. Not only is it fast, but it also brings with it a grand aura. The grand aura of the star meteor annihilation surged forth, and the trajectory of the spear art was mysterious and unpredictable. It would be very difficult to block it. The child formed from the laws of profound mysteries of the array was instantly defeated and dissipated. With just a single move, the destructive power of this spear art is shockingly strong. This can be said to be a perfect spear. Regardless of speed, strength, or laws of profound mysteries, they are all shocking. The Maishan Master also said, I didn't expect Dongwu Shuiying's strength to surpass us so quickly. He's even more powerful than the last time I saw him kill Yulan. Persei sighed in admiration. 18 years. Dongwu Shuiying did not waste his time. The remaining 2 children did not enter the Void Realm because the strength they could display would be reduced in the Void Realm. So I would rather be in the real world. Who? The terrifying spear art pierced out of the ethereal realm and into the real world. The spear was surrounded by phantoms, which were the phantoms of stars expanding, collapsing, and perishing. This terrifying might made it even more difficult for the remaining 2 children to resist. Even though they were defending with all their might, Dongwu Shuiying managed to shake off their coordination with a single spear strike. The second spear strike killed one of them, and the third spear strike killed the last one. He won the arena battle. Dongwu Shuiying walked out of the ethereal realm, and down the arena. At this moment, the laws of profound mysteries of the arrays on the arena once again condensed the 3 children. The 3 children continued to sit cross-legged with their eyes closed. As long as there was a challenger, they would continue to fight. Impressive, impressive! Ken Huang sighed in admiration. Dongwu Shuiying, when I saw you execute your secret art in front of the black-white deity mountain, I knew that your talent far surpasses ours. After all, you didn't have any powerful experts to guide you, nor did you go to a place like the Temporal Temple to squeeze out your potential. Yet you were able to create your own secret art in less than 200 years of cultivation. However, I didn't expect that not long after the battle at the black-white deity mountain, your strength would break through again. You have truly surpassed us. Amen. The Maishan Master sighed in admiration as well. One of them was a reincarnator of the Temporal Temple, while the other was a former reincarnator who had escaped from the Temporal Temple. They had seen many geniuses before. Dongwu Shuiying was definitely one of those who stood at the very top. Of course, there were also legends of peerless existences with a grade 1 true meaning. However, the 2 of them had never seen such existences before. Just based on what they had seen, Dongbu Shuang was definitely one of the strongest. I was right? Dongbu's combat power is indeed much higher than when he killed Yulan. Persei sighed in admiration. I perfected some of my spear techniques in the Great Canyon, Dongbu Shuang replied. Dongbu Shuang didn't feel proud at all. The star meteor annihilation was indeed powerful, but it had many flaws. For example, it was a purely offensive spear technique. Secondly, the speed at which he attacked with his spear was extremely fast. After 18 years of cultivation, Dongbu Ying's foundations in his three true meanings had become more solid, and they had all improved. However, the star meteor annihilation had already reached a stage where Dongbu Ying was temporarily unable to perfect it. The speed at which he attacked with his spear was even above that of his extreme piercing. However, it wasn't coherent enough. Extreme piercing could allow one spear after another to unleash thousands of spear techniques in an instant. The speed of the star meteor annihilation alone surpassed that of extreme piercing. However, after stabbing out, one would have to accumulate power again, making it impossible for one to unleash a continuous attack. This couldn't be helped. At the same time, it would also weaken the ability to continuously unleash a spear technique. In this world, there wasn't a single spear technique that could be absolutely perfect. Attacking and defending at the same time, being unpredictable, soft, and fierce, this didn't make sense. Thus, spear techniques, blade techniques, and others all had their own set. Some specialized in this, while others specialized in that. However, it wasn't easy to create the star meteor annihilation. Creating another secret skill wouldn't be an easy task. With your talent, Dongbu Shuang, with the guidance of an elder, you might be able to break through to the legendary Grade 1 true meaning if you were to experience some life and death situations. The Maishan master sighed. If you succeed, you will truly reach the heavens in a single step. A Grade 1 true meaning. Dongbu Shuang laughed. A Grade 1 true meaning? How difficult is that? Back when the Temporal Temple had invited him, they had mentioned that he had the potential to break through to a Grade 1 true meaning. However, this potential still needed to be unearthed. The Temporal Temple was very good at unearthing potential. However, it was too merciless. If it was willing to help Dongbu Shuang keep an eye on the Xia people, it would be able to return and participate in the war the moment it broke out. Dongbu Shuang would have joined the Temporal Temple previously. Unfortunately, it was just a weapon spirit. Everything it did had to follow the rules set by its master. Furthermore, to a weapon spirit, it was searching for geniuses in the billions of mortal worlds, the deity world, and the dark abyss. It did not care if there was one less or one more. Breaking through to a Grade 1 true meaning is too difficult. Just having talent isn't enough. One has to go through many trials and experience many setbacks. Only then can one transform. Ken Wang sighed. An absolute transcendent with a Grade 1 true meaning is comparable to this Crimson Rock Mountain in terms of value. Persei sighed. The master of Crimson Rock Mountain would not even test those absolute transcendents. He would take the initiative to accept them as his disciple. Furthermore, they would not be honorary disciples, but personal disciples. Wake up, all of you, Dongbu Shuang joked. Don't think too much. Let's take things one step at a time. What we need to do now is to defeat the opponents in these two arenas. And men, Ken Huang, the Maishan master, and Persei were all looking at the arenas. That's right. The third vine leaf world had obstructed them. Let me try this final arena. Dongbu Shuang took a step forward. With a so, he turned into a phantom and leaped onto the arena. He was not in a rush to attack. Instead, he stood there with a spear in his hand, looking at the fat hunk who was snoring away. Only then did the fat hunk slowly crawl up. He wore a tight-fitting armor. His body was fat and huge, like a small mountain. Looking at Dongbu Shuang in front of him, he said, "Brat, your combat power is considered not bad among the countless transcendents I've met. You were actually able to defeat Third Baby and the others so easily." He actually spoke. Ken Huang was surprised. Previously, he did not utter a single word when facing us. Oh, at most, he would say things like scram or kill. This shows that he has never looked down on us. The Mysian master shook his head. Persei sighed. That's right. They were all being suppressed. The difference in combat power was very obvious. Take this! Shuang let out a cold shout. He lifted the spear in his hand, arcing through the air in a revolving arc. It brought along a frightening power as it attacked. The surroundings of the spear even displayed the scene of stars being destroyed into extremities. 10. The fat hunk struck out with his palm once again. His palm struck out, or more accurately, pushed out. His palm suddenly pushed out. It was as if a towering mountain was charging towards him. Dongbua Shui Ying's spear art was fast and mysterious. It was very difficult to defend against. However, the fat hunk's palm was huge. It was like a cattail leaf fan, but also like a shield. It blocked Dongbua Shui Ying's spear attack. Boom! The tip of the spear collided with the huge palm. Dongbua Shui Ying could not help but stagger back more than 10 steps. Each step caused the ground to tremble. However, the fat hunk's body only trembled slightly. What terrifying power! Dongbua Shui Ying took another step back. His body disappeared into thin air as he entered the mirage. Humph! The fat man sneered. He waved his giant palm and directly pierced into the void, reaching into the ethereal extent. Hong! The mirage boomed. Dongbua Shui Ying walked out from the mirage. He frowned. Previously, the fat hunk's palm had entered the mirage, and his combat power was not affected at all. This meant that entering the mirage was useless against him. Hiding in the mirage is useless against me, the fat hunk said. You've reached the stage 3 of the mirage realm, so you should be able to change your body between real and illusory. This is an extremely powerful ability in close combat. Come, let me see your combat power. Ever since I retired from the Black Iron Cannon Army, it has been a long time since I fought against a transcendent who specializes in the mirage. Don't worry. I'm using this array to form a body, and my combat power is suppressed. I won't exceed the limits set by the Sacred Master. You still have hope of defeating me. Black Iron Cannon Army? Persei, who was below the arena, revealed a shocked expression. He was actually a member of the Bloodshed God Palace's Black Iron Cannon Army? **********.